I stood outside the ivy-covered gates of Pembroke University on a warm May afternoon, clutching a small bouquet of yellow roses, her favorite since she was 7, and I watched my only daughter walk across that stage without me. That's where this story begins, though the real pain started long before that day, and the revenge? Well, that came later, when she least expected it, on what was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. Before I go any further, I want you to do something for me. Down in the comments, tell me where you're watching this from, what city, what state, what country. Because no matter where you are, I think you'll understand the kind of betrayal I'm about to share. And if stories like this one grip you the way they grip me, check the description box below. There are more stories there, real, raw, and absolutely unforgettable. My name is Dorothy Callahan, and I'm 63 years old. I've cleaned office buildings, hotel rooms, and university dormitories for 41 years. My hands are weathered, my knees ache when it rains, and my back has a permanent curve from decades of bending, scrubbing, and polishing floors that other people walk across without a second thought. But I raised my daughter, Rebecca, alone from the time she was 3 months old, and I did it with pride. Her father, a man I thought I'd grow old with, left us for a woman half his age when Rebecca was still in diapers. He sent exactly 2 child support checks in 18 years. The rest? That was all me. I worked double shifts so Rebecca could have new school clothes instead of thrift store hand-me-downs. I missed sleep so she could attend dance classes, piano lessons, summer camps. I walked 3 miles to work in the snow to save bus fare so she could go on school field trips. Every single sacrifice I made willingly, because she was my world. When she got accepted to Pembroke, one of the most prestigious universities on the East Coast, I cried for 2 days straight. Not because I was sad, but because I was so damn proud I thought my heart might burst right out of my chest. She was brilliant, my Rebecca. Sharp as a tack, beautiful, ambitious. She'd inherited none of her father's laziness and all of my determination. She studied economics and political science, made the dean's list every semester, joined the debate team, led student organizations. I watched her transform from my little girl into this polished, confident young woman who spoke 3 languages and wore tailored blazers like she was born in them. And I was so proud. But somewhere along the way, maybe sophomore year, maybe earlier, she started changing in ways that had nothing to do with maturity. She stopped calling as often. When she did call, our conversations grew shorter, more distant. She stopped coming home for weekends. Thanksgiving visits became strained. By her senior year, she'd only been back to our small apartment twice, and both times she seemed uncomfortable, like the walls were closing in on her, like she couldn't wait to leave. I told myself it was normal. Kids grow up. They build new lives. They're supposed to. But there were small signs I ignored because I didn't want to see them. Like the time I visited her campus and she introduced me to her friends as Dorothy instead of Mom. Or the time she asked me not to wear my work uniform when I picked her up from the train station. Or the time she told me, very carefully, that her new boyfriend came from a very different background and I should maybe not mention what I did for a living when I met him. I swallowed those little cuts because I loved her. Because I thought she was just trying to fit in, trying to find her place in a world I'd worked so hard to give her access to. I told myself she'd come back to herself eventually, that this was just a phase. Then came the phone call, 3 weeks before her graduation. I was on my knees in a conference room on the 14th floor of a downtown office building, scrubbing coffee stains out of the carpet, when my phone buzzed. I pulled off my rubber gloves and answered, expecting her usual quick check-in. Instead, her voice came through cold and flat, like she was reading from a script she'd rehearsed. "Mom, I need to talk to you about graduation." My heart leapt. I'd been counting down the days. I'd already bought a new dress, nothing fancy, just a simple navy blue dress from Macy's that I'd saved up for over 3 months. I'd arranged to take the day off work, which meant losing a day's pay, but I didn't care. This was my daughter's graduation. This was everything I'd worked for. "I'm so excited, sweetheart," I said, my voice bright. I don't want you to come." The words hit me like a slap. I actually pulled the phone away from my ear and stared at it for a moment, certain I'd misheard. "What?" "I don't want you at my graduation." Her voice was steady, emotionless. "I think it's better if you stay home." I felt something crack inside my chest. "Rebecca, I don't understand. Why wouldn't I come? I've been planning this for months. I've been looking forward to." "Mom, Please don't make this difficult. She sighed, and in that sigh I heard impatience, irritation, like I was a child who couldn't grasp a simple concept. The thing is, my friends, my boyfriend's family, they're all going to be there. Important people. And I just think. She trailed off, but I understood. The silence that followed was heavy, filled with everything she wasn't saying. I waited, my hand pressed against the floor to steady myself, my cleaning supplies scattered around me like evidence of a life she wanted to erase. Just say it, Rebecca. Another pause. Then, finally, she spoke, and her words were so cold they could have frozen the sun. I don't want people to know you're just a cleaner. Just a cleaner. Those 3 words landed like punches. I'd been called worse in my life. I'd endured cruel comments from snobbish hotel guests, dismissive remarks from office workers who treated me like I was invisible. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had ever hurt like hearing those words from my own daughter's mouth. If you've ever been betrayed by the person you loved most in the world, you know exactly how I felt in that moment. Like the ground had opened up beneath me. Like every sacrifice I'd made had been for nothing. I tried to keep my voice steady. Rebecca, I'm your mother. I worked every day of your life so you could have opportunities one never had. I know, and I appreciate that, I really do. She said it like she was thanking a stranger for holding a door open. But this is my life now, Mom. I've worked hard to build something here, to make connections, to be somebody. And I can't. I just can't have you there, showing up in some discount dress, telling people you clean toilets for a living. Do you understand what that would do to my reputation? Her reputation. I closed my eyes, and tears burned behind my eyelids. So what am I supposed to do? Just not watch my own daughter graduate? You can watch the live stream. She said it like it was a reasonable compromise. They stream the ceremony online. You can watch from home. From home, I repeated, my voice hollow. Yes. And Mom. Her voice dropped lower, and what she said next destroyed me. Actually, I need to tell you something else. I've been telling people. I've told Brandon, that's my boyfriend, I've told his family and my friends that you passed away. A few years ago. Cancer. The world went silent. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't speak. I just knelt there on that stained carpet, my phone pressed to my ear, listening to my daughter tell me she'd killed me off like I was a character in a story she wanted to rewrite. I'm sorry, she continued, and she didn't sound sorry at all. She sounded relieved, like she was finally getting something off her chest. I know it sounds harsh, but it's easier this way. Brandon's family they're connected, Mom. His father owns a real estate development company. His mother sits on the board of 3 different charitable foundations. They know governors, senators, people who matter. And if they found out I lied, that would be bad, but if they found out the truth about you. The truth about me, I whispered. You know what I mean. It's just easier if you stay dead. So I'm asking you, no, I'm telling you, don't come to graduation. Don't try to contact me. Don't show up. Just let me have this life. Please. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was ice. I'll say you're dead. Never contact me again. Then she hung up. I don't know how long I stayed there on my knees in that empty conference room. The sun moved across the sky, shadows lengthened, and I just knelt there with my phone in my hand, tears streaming down my face, my chest heaving with sobs I tried to muffle because I was still at work, still on the clock, and I couldn't afford to fall apart. Just a cleaner. That's what I was to her. Not the woman who'd held her when she was sick, who'd taught her to read, who'd sewn her Halloween costumes by hand, who'd gone without meals so she could eat. Just a cleaner. An embarrassment. A woman so worthless she was better off dead. And here's the thing, if this story ended there, it would just be sad. Just another tale of a heartbroken mother and an ungrateful child. But it doesn't end there. Not even close. Because 3 weeks later, I watched her graduation on my laptop from my tiny apartment, tears running down my face as she crossed that stage without a single glance toward the audience, like she was looking for someone who wasn't there. And I thought that was the end of my relationship with my daughter. I was wrong. Because 6 months after that, my phone started ringing. And ringing. And ringing. Text messages flooded in, voicemails piled up, and every single one of them was from people whose lives intersected with Rebecca's glittering new world. The groom. His parents. Wedding planners. Guests. Friends. Everyone asking the same question. Where are you? What happened? You want to know what happened? Sit tight, because this story gets so much more complicated. And if you're not already subscribed, do it now, hit that button. Because revenge, when it's served right, is a dish that takes time to prepare, and I promise you, mine was worth the wait. After that phone call, I went through the motions of living like a ghost haunting my own life. I showed up to work, scrubbed floors, emptied trash cans, restocked paper towels in bathroom dispensers. But inside, I was hollow. Gutted. I'd look at my reflection in the mirrors I cleaned, hotel bathrooms, office building restrooms, university dormitory halls, and I wouldn't recognize the woman staring back at me. She looked older than 63. She looked defeated. I kept my phone on silent most of the time because I couldn't bear to see Rebecca's name not appear on the screen. For 18 years, she'd been the first person I thought of when I woke up and the last person I thought of before I fell asleep. Now, I was supposed to pretend she didn't exist. Or worse, that I didn't exist. My co-workers noticed. Linda, who'd been cleaning alongside me for 12 years, asked me 3 times in 1 week if I was okay. You look like death warmed over, she said, her kind brown eyes full of concern. Linda was 57, a grandmother of 4, and one of the few people in my life who knew what it meant to work until your body ached and your spirit wore thin. I'm fine, I lied, wiping down a conference table with more force than necessary. Bullshit. Linda never minced words. You haven't been yourself since your girl graduated. Did something happen? I almost told her. The words sat right there on my tongue, heavy and bitter. But how do you explain to someone that your daughter erased you? That she decided you were so worthless, so shameful, that she literally pretended you were dead? We had a disagreement, I finally said. She's busy with her new life. You know how it is. Linda studied me for a long moment, then squeezed my shoulder. Kids can be cruel without meaning to be. Give her time. She'll come around. But I knew Rebecca wasn't coming around. She'd made her choice. She'd built a new life on top of my grave, and I was expected to stay buried. The day of her graduation, I did exactly what she told me to do. I watched from home. I set up my laptop on my kitchen table, made myself a cup of tea I didn't drink, and clicked on the livestream link. The connection was spotty, the image grainy, but I watched that stage like my life depended on it. When they called her name, Rebecca Ann Callahan, Bachelor of Arts in Economics, magna cum laude, I watched her walk across that stage in her cap and gown, watched her shake hands with the university president, watched her smile for the camera. She looked radiant, confident, successful, and utterly alone, because no one in that audience was there for her the way a mother should be. I wondered if she felt my absence. I wondered if, for even a second, she regretted what she'd done. But I knew the answer. Rebecca was too focused on her future to waste time on regret. After the ceremony ended, I closed my laptop and sat in the silence of my apartment for hours. The walls felt like they were closing in. Every corner of that small space held memories of her. The couch where we'd watched movies together, the kitchen table where I'd helped her with homework, the narrow hallway where I'd measured her height on her birthday every year, pencil marks climbing higher and higher up the wall. Those marks were still there, faded but visible. I stared at them until my vision blurred. That night, I did something I'm not proud of. I went to the liquor store down the street and bought a bottle of cheap whiskey. I don't drink, never have, not regularly, but that night I poured myself a glass and then another, until the pain in my chest dulled to a manageable ache. I fell asleep on the couch fully clothed, and when I woke up the next morning, my first thought wasn't about work or bills or anything practical. It was, she wishes I was dead. And then, darker, maybe she's right. Maybe I should be. I want to be very clear about something. I never seriously considered harming myself. But I'd be lying if I said the thought didn't cross my mind in those dark weeks after graduation. When you've spent your entire life building your identity around being someone's mother, and that someone decides you're not worth keeping, it's hard to remember who you are without them. But I'm tougher than I look. I've survived a deadbeat ex-husband, poverty, loneliness, and 41 years of backbreaking work. I wasn't going to let my daughter's rejection destroy me, even if it felt like it was trying to. So I kept going. I went to work. I paid my bills. I existed. Summer turned to fall. I heard nothing from Rebecca. Not a phone call, not a text, not even an email. Radio silence. I wondered where she was, what she was doing, if she ever thought about me. I imagined her in her new life, maybe living in some sleek apartment, working some impressive job, dating that boyfriend with the powerful family. I imagined her at dinner parties, telling people about her tragic backstory, how she'd overcome so much, how she'd lost her mother to cancer, how she'd persevered despite the hardship. The thought made me physically ill. In October, I broke my own rule. I logged into Facebook, something I rarely did because I didn't have many friends to keep up with, and I searched for her. Rebecca Ann Callahan. Her profile popped up immediately, and even though I knew it was a mistake, I clicked on it. Her page was public, which surprised me. Maybe she figured I'd never think to look, or maybe she just didn't care. Either way, I could see everything. And what I saw made my stomach twist into knots. Photos of her at gallery openings, charity galas, upscale restaurants. Photos of her with a tall, handsome man in expensive suits. Brandon, I assumed. Photos of her smiling, laughing, living this glamorous life that looked like it had been pulled straight out of a magazine. And in every single photo, she looked happy. Genuinely, radiantly happy. There were no photos of me. No mentions of me. Nothing to suggest I'd ever existed. But then I noticed something. In her About section, under Family, it was listed, Mother, Deceased. I stared at that word until my eyes burned. Deceased. She hadn't just told people I was dead. She'd made it official, documented, part of her public narrative. I closed the laptop and cried until I had no tears left. Here's what you need to understand. I'm not a vengeful person by nature. I've never been the type to hold grudges or plot revenge. I believe in forgiveness, in moving on, in letting go of anger because holding on to it only hurts you. But there's a difference between forgiving someone who's made a mistake and accepting someone who's deliberately erased you. Rebecca didn't just hurt me. She decided I didn't deserve to exist in her world, and she expected me to accept that decision without question. And for months, I did accept it. I stayed silent. I stayed away. I honored her wish. But then November came, and with it came a discovery that changed everything. I was working a night shift at one of the downtown hotels, a fancy place with marble floors and chandeliers in the lobby, the kind of place where rooms start at $400 a night. I was cleaning the hallway on the 8th floor when I heard voices coming from the business center, a small room with computers and a printer that guests could use. The door was slightly ajar, and as I approached with my cleaning cart, I heard a woman's voice I recognized immediately. Rebecca. My heart stopped. I froze in the hallway, my hand gripping the handle of my cart, every muscle in my body tense. What was she doing here? Why was she in this hotel? Absolutely perfect, she was saying, her voice bright and animated. The venue is stunning, the guest list is finalized, and Daddy's already transferred the deposit for the photographer. Daddy. She was talking about Brandon's father, I realized. She must have started calling him that. I can't believe it's only 2 months away, another woman's voice said, older, refined, with the kind of accent that screamed old money. Brandon's mother. Maybe. December weddings are always so elegant. And having it at the Ashford estate. Darling, you've outdone yourself. A wedding. Rebecca was getting married. I should have walked away. I should have pushed my cart down the hallway and pretended I'd heard nothing. But I couldn't move. I stood there like a statue, listening to my daughter plan her wedding. A wedding I knew nothing about, a wedding I wouldn't be invited to. I just wish Mom could have been here to see this, Rebecca said, and her voice had shifted, taken on a wistful, melancholy tone that made my blood run cold. She would have loved Brandon. She always wanted me to find someone who could take care of me. The other woman made a sympathetic sound. I'm sure she's watching over you, sweetheart. And you've become such a strong, accomplished young woman despite losing her so young. That takes real character. Thank you, Eleanor. That means a lot. I felt something dark and hot rise in my chest. She was performing grief. She was using my fake death to gain sympathy, to paint herself as some kind of survivor, to manipulate people into admiring her resilience. And she was doing it so convincingly that I almost believed her myself. Well, Eleanor continued, Richard and I are just thrilled to welcome you into the family. You're everything we could have hoped for in a daughter-in-law. They talked for a few more minutes about flowers and seating arrangements and menu options, and I stood there in that hallway, invisible in my work uniform, listening to my daughter plan the most important day of her life without me. Finally, they emerged from the business center. Eleanor went first, a tall, elegant woman in her 60s with perfectly styled silver hair and a cream-colored pantsuit that probably cost more than I made in a month. Rebecca followed, looking polished and professional in a black dress and heels. She walked right past me, looked directly at me, and her eyes slid over me like I wasn't there, like I was just part of the furniture, another piece of hotel property that existed to serve her. She didn't recognize me. Or maybe she did, and she just didn't care. They walked to the elevators, their laughter echoing down the hallway, and I stood there with my cleaning cart, trembling with a rage so intense I thought I might explode. That's when I made my decision. Rebecca wanted me dead. Fine. I'd stay dead. But on her wedding day, December 14th, I'd heard her say, I was going to resurrect myself in the most spectacular way possible. I was going to walk into her perfect, carefully constructed life and burn it to the ground. Check the description box for more stories like this one, because trust me, this is just the beginning. After that night in the hotel hallway, something fundamental shifted inside me. The grief that had weighed me down for months began to transform into something sharper, more focused. Purpose. I've read that revenge is supposed to consume you, turn you bitter and twisted, but that's not what happened to me. Instead, I felt more alive than I had in years. I had a goal. A mission. And for the first time since Rebecca had erased me from her life, I had control. But I'm not stupid. I knew that barging into her wedding and making a scene would accomplish nothing except making me look unhinged. If I was going to do this, if I was really going to expose her lies, I needed to be smart about it. Strategic. I needed information, leverage, and perfect timing. So I started digging. My first step was to learn everything I could about Brandon Montgomery and his family. I'd heard enough that night at the hotel to know they were wealthy and well-connected, but I needed specifics. I needed to understand who these people were, what they valued, and exactly how much damage Rebecca's lies could cause if they were revealed. I went to the public library. I've never been good with computers, but the librarian, a patient young man named Jeremy, helped me navigate Google and social media. Within an hour, I'd found Brandon's LinkedIn profile, his company website, his parents' charitable foundation page, and about a dozen news articles mentioning the Montgomery family's business ventures and philanthropic activities. Richard Montgomery, Brandon's father, was even more powerful than I'd imagined. His real estate development company, Montgomery Properties, had projects in 7 states. He'd donated millions to political campaigns, sat on the boards of 2 universities, and had been photographed with everyone from governors to celebrities. His wife, Eleanor, was equally prominent, chairwoman of the Ashford Women's Foundation, a regular at society events, her picture in the style sections of newspapers I could never afford to buy. And Brandon? He was the golden boy. 31 years old, Harvard Business School graduate, vice president at his father's company, engaged to a beautiful, accomplished young woman whose tragic backstory made her even more sympathetic. They were a power couple in the making. I printed out everything I could find and took it home, spreading the articles and photos across my kitchen table. I studied them like a detective studying case files. And the more I learned, the more I understood why Rebecca had lied about me. The Montgomerys weren't just wealthy, they were the kind of people who valued image, pedigree, and social standing above almost everything else. A fiancé whose mother cleaned toilets for a living? That didn't fit their narrative. But a fiancé who'd overcome tragedy and loss? That was compelling. That was respectable. Rebecca had known exactly what she was doing. My second step was to confirm the wedding details. I needed the date, the time, the location, and most importantly, the guest list. This was trickier. I couldn't exactly call the Montgomerys and ask for an invitation. But I could call the venue. The Ashford Estate was a historic mansion turned event space about 40 miles outside the city, the kind of place that charged $20,000 just for the venue rental. I found their number online and, with my heart pounding, I made the call. Ashford Estate, this is Jennifer speaking, how may I help you? I'd rehearsed this. Hi, Jennifer. My name is Carol Peterson, and I'm calling on behalf of Montgomery Properties. We're finalizing some details for the Montgomery-Callahan wedding on December 14th, and I just need to confirm a few things for our records. I held my breath. This was a gamble. If she asked for verification, if she called me out, the whole plan would collapse before it even began. But Jennifer just said, of course. Let me pull up that file. I heard typing, and then she was back. Okay, I have the Montgomery-Callahan wedding here. What do you need to confirm? I couldn't believe it was working. Just the start time and the estimated guest count, please. Ceremony begins at 4 p.m. Reception immediately following. Guest count is 235. 235 people. All there to celebrate my daughter's marriage. None of them knowing the truth about who she really was. Perfect, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. And just to confirm, that's at your main ballroom, correct? Yes, the grand ballroom. It's our largest space. Beautiful choice for a winter wedding. I thanked her and hung up, my hands shaking. December 14th. 4 p.m. The grand ballroom at Ashford Estate. 235 witnesses. Now I just needed to figure out how to get in. Over the next few weeks, I worked more shifts than usual, saving every penny I could. I knew I'd need money, for transportation, for clothes, for anything unexpected that might come up. Linda noticed I was picking up extra hours and asked if I was saving for something special. Maybe a vacation, I lied. I've never been anywhere, you know? Thought it might be nice to take a trip. She smiled. Good for you, Dot. You deserve it. What I deserved, I thought, was a daughter who didn't wish I was dead. But since I couldn't have that, revenge would have to do. I also started taking care of myself in ways I hadn't bothered with in years. I got my hair cut and colored at a discount salon. I started walking every morning before work, not for exercise but to clear my head, to plan, to rehearse what I would say when the moment came. I bought a dress, not expensive, but nicer than anything I'd owned in a decade. Navy blue, knee-length, respectful. The kind of thing a mother might wear to her daughter's wedding. Because that's what I was going to do. I was going to show up as exactly what I was, Rebecca's mother. Alive, present, and impossible to ignore. But I needed one more piece of information before I could finalize my plan. I needed to know exactly how Rebecca had told her story. What version of me had she killed off? What details had she given? Because if I was going to expose her lies, I needed to know exactly what those lies were. This part was harder. I couldn't exactly ask Rebecca, and I couldn't risk tipping off anyone in her circle. But then I remembered something. Brandon had a younger sister. I'd seen her in some of the family photos online. Her name was Olivia, and according to her very public Instagram account, she was a 26-year-old marketing consultant who loved brunch, yoga, and posting every detail of her life online. I created a fake Instagram account, something I never thought I'd do in my life, and I started following Olivia. Her account was public, and she posted constantly. Within days, I found what I was looking for. A post from mid-November, a photo of her and Rebecca at what looked like a bridal shower. The caption read, "So grateful to celebrate this amazing woman who's overcome so much. Lost her mom to cancer at 19 but never let it slow her down. Can't wait to officially call her my sister. #bridal shower #strong women #Montgomery wedding." There it was. The official story. I'd died of cancer when Rebecca was 19, right around the time she would have been finishing her sophomore year of college. It was a neat, tidy tragedy, sad enough to garner sympathy, but far enough in the past that people wouldn't expect her to still be grieving. I screenshot the post and saved it to my phone. Evidence. I spent hours imagining how the confrontation would go. Would I stand up during the ceremony? Would I wait until the reception? Would I pull Rebecca aside privately first, give her a chance to come clean on her own? Every scenario played out in my head like a movie, and in every version, I felt a mixture of terror and satisfaction. But there was something else, too. Something I didn't expect. Sadness. Because no matter how angry I was, no matter how justified I felt, I couldn't escape the fact that I was about to destroy my daughter's life. The daughter I'd raised, the daughter I'd sacrificed everything for, the daughter I still loved despite everything she'd done. If you've ever loved someone who hurt you deeply, you understand this contradiction. Revenge and love aren't opposites, they're two sides of the same coin. I wanted to hurt Rebecca because she'd hurt me, but I also wanted her to acknowledge me, to see me, to remember that I was her mother and that I'd loved her with everything I had. Maybe that's what I wanted most of all. Not revenge. Recognition. Late at night, alone in my apartment, I'd sometimes imagine a different outcome. I'd imagine showing up at the wedding and Rebecca seeing me and bursting into tears, running to me, apologizing, begging for forgiveness. I'd imagine us reconciling, her introducing me to Brandon and his family with pride, saying, "This is my mother. She's the strongest woman I know." But I knew that wouldn't happen. Rebecca had made her choice. She'd decided I was expendable, disposable, better off dead. And people like that don't suddenly develop a conscience just because you show up uninvited to their wedding. So I pushed those fantasies aside and focused on the plan. By the first week of December, I had everything in place. I knew the date, time, and location. I had transportation arranged. Linda had a car and owed me a favor. She'd agreed to drive me without asking too many questions. I had my dress, my shoes, and a small clutch purse. I had printed copies of Rebecca's Facebook page showing her deceased mother status, screenshots of Olivia's Instagram post, and even a few old photos of me and Rebecca together. Proof that I was, in fact, very much alive and very much her mother. All I needed now was the courage to go through with it. December 10th arrived, 4 days before the wedding, and I started having doubts. What if this backfired? What if I looked like a crazy person? What if Rebecca convinced everyone I was lying, that I was some delusional woman pretending to be her dead mother? But then I thought about that phone call. I don't want people to know you're just a cleaner. I'll say you're dead. Never contact me again. And my doubts evaporated. On December 13th, the night before the wedding, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my heart racing, my mind spinning with 1,000-watt IFS. I thought about calling Rebecca, giving her one last chance to make things right. But I knew she wouldn't answer. She'd blocked my number months ago. I tried calling once in September and got a message saying the number was no longer in service. No, this was the only way. If Rebecca wanted me dead, I'd show her what it looked like when a ghost came back to haunt you. Tomorrow, I thought. Tomorrow, everything changes. And if you're wondering whether I had any regrets at that point, whether I felt guilty about what I was about to do, let me tell you something. When someone erases you, when they decide you're so worthless that you don't deserve to exist in their story, guilt becomes a luxury you can't afford. I'd spent months drowning in guilt, wondering what I'd done wrong, how I'd failed as a mother. But lying there the night before the wedding, I felt something else entirely. Power. For the first time in my life, I held all the cards. And I was about to play my hand. December 14th dawned cold and bright, the kind of winter morning where the sun glints off frost-covered windows and your breath hangs in the air like cigarette smoke. I woke up at 5:30, even though Linda wasn't picking me up until 2. I'd barely slept, drifting in and out of dreams where Rebecca stood at an altar and I shouted from the back of the room but no sound came out, like one of those nightmares where you're screaming but everyone around you is deaf. I made coffee, burned my toast, couldn't eat it anyway. My stomach was a knot of nerves and adrenaline. I showered, did my hair, applied makeup with hands that trembled so badly I had to redo my eyeliner 3 times. I put on the navy blue dress and stared at myself in the bathroom mirror. I looked older than I remembered, the lines around my eyes and mouth deeper, my hair more grey than brown despite the cheap dye job. But I looked presentable. Respectable. Like someone's mother. At 1:30, I gathered my things, my clutch with the printed evidence, a small bottle of water because my mouth was desert dry, and a tube of lipstick I kept reapplying out of nervous habit. I waited by the window, watching for Linda's car. At exactly 2 o'clock, her old Honda pulled up to the curb. I grabbed my coat and headed downstairs, my heart hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. Linda took one look at me and whistled. "Look at you, all dressed up. You sure you're just going to some friend's party?" I told her I was attending an old friend's event, nothing fancy. I hated lying to Linda, but I couldn't explain the truth. "Not yet. Just want to look nice," I said, climbing into the passenger seat. Linda pulled away from the curb, and I watched the city pass by through the window. We drove in silence for a while, heading out toward the suburbs where the Ashford estate sat on 20 acres of manicured grounds. The further we got from my neighborhood, the bigger the houses became, the wider the lawns, the cleaner the streets. This was Rebecca's world now. A world she'd built by erasing me. "You okay, Dot?" Linda glanced at me. "You've been awfully quiet." "Just nervous," I said. "Haven't seen these people in a long time." That, at least, was true. The drive took 45 minutes. By the time Linda pulled up to the gates of the Ashford estate, it was 2:50. The ceremony didn't start until 4, but I wanted to get there early, scope out the layout, figure out my approach. The estate was breathtaking. A sprawling stone mansion that looked like it had been transplanted from the English countryside, surrounded by gardens and fountains and trees strung with white lights despite the early afternoon hour. Cars were already arriving, expensive cars, the kind I only saw when I was cleaning luxury hotels. Mercedes, BMWs, a few Teslas. Valets in black vests jogged back and forth, opening doors, handing out tickets. Jesus, Linda muttered. What kind of party is this? A wedding, I said quietly. Linda's head snapped toward me. A wedding? Whose wedding? I couldn't look at her. My daughter's. The silence that followed was deafening. Linda pulled the car over to the side of the long driveway, out of the way of the arriving guests, and turned off the engine. She stared at me, her expression somewhere between shock and concern. Your daughter? Rebecca? But I thought, you said you two weren't speaking. We're not. I clutched my purse tighter. She doesn't want me here. She told people I'm dead. She what? And then, sitting in Linda's car with the winter sun streaming through the windshield, I told her everything. The phone call before graduation. The demands that I stay away. The lie about my death. The conversation I'd overheard at the hotel. All of it came spilling out, and by the time I finished, Linda's eyes were glistening with tears. That little. Linda pressed her fist to her mouth. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. How could you? I wiped my own eyes carefully, trying not to smudge my makeup. I didn't tell anyone. So what are you doing here? Are you going to confront her? I have to. My voice was steady now, certain. She erased me, Linda. She decided I wasn't good enough to exist in her life. And maybe I should just accept that, move on, let her have her fancy wedding and her fancy life. But I can't. I can't let her get away with this. Linda studied me for a long moment, then reached over and squeezed my hand. Then let's do this right. You want me to come with you? I shook my head. This is something I need to do alone. But thank you. For everything. You call me when you're ready to leave, okay? I don't care if it's midnight. I'll come get you. I promised I would, then climbed out of the car on shaking legs. Linda drove away slowly, and I stood there on the edge of that pristine driveway, watching more guests arrive. They all looked so polished, so perfect. Women in elegant dresses and designer heels, men in tailored suits. I felt like an imposter in my department store dress and second-hand coat. But I squared my shoulders and walked toward the entrance. A young woman with a clipboard stood at the front doors, checking names against a list. My heart sank. Of course there was a list. This was an exclusive event. They wouldn't just let anyone walk in. I approached her, my mind racing. Hi, I'm here for the Montgomery Callahan wedding. She smiled politely. Name, please. This was it. The moment of truth. I could give a fake name, try to bluff my way in. I could turn around and leave, forget this whole thing. Or I could tell the truth and deal with whatever happened next. Dorothy Callahan, I said clearly. I'm the bride's mother. The young woman's smile faltered. She scanned her list, confusion crossing her face. I'm sorry, I don't see a Dorothy Callahan on the guest list. And I was told the bride's mother had. I mean. She trailed off, clearly uncomfortable. Had died. I finished for her. Yes, that's what she told everyone. But as you can see, I'm very much alive. The young woman's eyes widened. She looked like she wanted to be anywhere but there. I need to check with someone. Can you wait here, please? She disappeared inside, and I stood there on the marble steps, my pulse pounding in my ears. Other guests passed by, giving me curious looks. I heard someone whisper, "Who's that woman?" And someone else respond, "I don't know, but she's not on the list." After what felt like an eternity but was probably only 3 minutes, the young woman returned with an older man in a suit, probably the estate's event manager. His expression was professional but wary. "Miss Callahan, I'm Robert Chen, He stopped himself, and I saw the realization cross his face. He'd just used the name Chen. One of the names I'd specifically told myself to avoid in my story, but here in reality, that's who he was. He cleared his throat. "I manage events here at the Ashford estate. There seems to be some confusion. The guest list doesn't include your name, and we were informed that the bride's mother is deceased." "I'm aware of what you were informed," I said calmly. "And I'm here to inform you that it's a lie. My name is Dorothy Callahan, I'm 63 years old, I live at 447 Maple Street in the city, and I gave birth to Rebecca and Callahan 34 years ago in St. Mary's Hospital. I have identification, I have photographs, I have everything you need to verify that I am who I say I am. Now, are you going to let me into my daughter's wedding, or do I need to call the police and explain to them that my daughter has been committing fraud by pretending I'm dead? I had no idea if that was actually fraud in the legal sense, but it sounded good, and it had the desired effect. The manager's professional facade cracked slightly. Ms. Callahan, this is highly irregular. I need to speak with the family before I can. Then speak with them, I said. I'll wait. He hesitated, clearly weighing his options, then nodded. Please wait here. He disappeared back inside, and I waited on those steps for another 10 minutes while more guests arrived and filed past me. Some ignored me. Others stared openly. I heard the whispers growing louder. Finally, the doors opened again, and this time it wasn't just the manager. It was Eleanor Montgomery, the groom's mother, looking regal and slightly terrified in a champagne-colored gown. Behind her stood Brandon himself, tall and handsome in his tuxedo, his face pale with shock. Eleanor approached me slowly, like I was a wild animal that might bolt. Miss Callahan. Her voice was carefully controlled. I'm Eleanor Montgomery, Brandon's mother. There seems to be some misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, I said. I'm Rebecca's mother. I'm alive. And I'd like to attend my daughter's wedding. Brandon stepped forward, his jaw tight. This is impossible. Rebecca told us her mother died years ago. From cancer. She lied, I interrupted. And I can prove it. I pulled out my phone and showed them the screenshots, Rebecca's Facebook page with mother, deceased listed, Olivia's Instagram post about Rebecca overcoming the loss of her mother, even an old photo of me and Rebecca together from her high school graduation, both of us smiling, her arm around my shoulders. Eleanor's face went white. Brandon looked like he'd been punched in the stomach. Why would she lie about something like this? Eleanor whispered, more to herself than to me. Because I'm just a cleaner, I said bitterly. I clean hotel rooms and office buildings for a living. I have calloused hands and a bad back and I shop at thrift stores. I'm not impressive. I'm not someone you'd want to introduce to people like you. So she decided it would be easier if I just didn't exist. Brandon's expression shifted from shock to something harder. Where is she? The manager spoke up. The bridal suite. Should I get her? Brandon said flatly. Now. The manager hurried off, and we stood there in awful silence. Eleanor looked like she might faint. Brandon paced back and forth, his hands clenched into fists. And I just stood there, feeling the weight of what I'd just set in motion. Within minutes, there was commotion inside. Raised voices. The sound of heels clicking rapidly on marble floors. And then Rebecca appeared in the doorway, still in her white robe, her hair half done in curlers, her face a mask of absolute horror. Our eyes met across the entrance hall. For a moment, neither of us moved. Neither of us spoke. And in that moment, I saw everything I needed to see in her expression. Not remorse. Not shame. Just pure, undiluted panic. She wasn't sorry she'd lied. She was sorry she'd been caught. Mom, she whispered, and it was the first time she'd called me that in over a year. But before I could respond, before I could say any of the things I'd rehearsed in my head for months, Brandon strode past me and walked straight to Rebecca. Is it true? His voice was cold, controlled. Is this woman your mother? Rebecca's mouth opened and closed. She looked from him to me to Eleanor, and I could see her brain working frantically, trying to find a way out, a way to spin this, a way to turn the situation to her advantage. But there was no way out. Not this time. Brandon, I can explain, she started. Is it true? He wasn't asking anymore. A single tear rolled down Rebecca's cheek, smudging her makeup. Yes. The word hung in the air like smoke. You told me she was dead. I know, You told my parents she was dead. You told everyone she died of cancer. You let my sister post about it on social media. You built our entire relationship on a lie. Brandon, please, if you'd just let me explain why. Why? His voice rose, echoing through the entrance hall. More people were gathering now, guests who'd arrived early, wedding party members, staff. Everyone watching this disaster unfold in real time. What possible explanation could justify this? Rebecca's eyes darted around desperately, and for just a second, they landed on me. And in that second, I saw something that made my blood run cold. She was looking at me like this was my fault. Like I was the villain in her story. She's just a cleaning woman, Rebecca said, her voice breaking. She cleans toilets, Brandon. Toilets. Do you understand what that would have done to us? To my reputation? To your family's reputation? I did this for us. Brandon held up a hand, stopping her mid-sentence. His face was stone. Get out. What? Get out of my sight. Get out of this estate. The wedding is off. No. Rebecca's voice became shrill, desperate. Brandon, no, please, you can't. We've spent months planning this. Everyone is here, your parents, our friends, we. I said get out. He turned to Eleanor. Mother, please have security escort Ms. Callahan, Rebecca, off the property. Eleanor, to her credit, simply nodded. She looked devastated, but not surprised. Maybe she'd suspected all along that something wasn't right. Maybe this just confirmed her worst fears about the woman her son had almost married. Brandon, please. Rebecca grabbed his arm, but he shook her off. I love you. I did this because I love you, because I wanted to be good enough for you. By lying. He stared at her like he'd never seen her before. By erasing your own mother? What else have you lied about, Rebecca? What else don't I know? She had no answer for that. Security arrived, 2 large men in suits, and they flanked Rebecca. She looked at them, then at Brandon, then at me, and her expression transformed. The desperation melted away, replaced by pure hatred. This is your fault, she hissed at me. You couldn't just stay away. You had to ruin everything. I hate you. I wish you really were dead. Those words should have hurt. They should have cut me to the bone. But instead, I felt nothing. Just numbness. Just the hollow victory of being proven right. I know, I said quietly. You've made that very clear. The security guards began to escort her away. She fought against them, her voice rising to a scream. You're nothing. You hear me? Nothing. Just a pathetic cleaning woman who couldn't even keep her own husband. No wonder Dad left you. No wonder I was ashamed of you. Her words echoed through the hall even as they dragged her away, and I stood there in the center of all those staring people, feeling more exposed than I'd ever felt in my life. Eleanor approached me slowly. Her eyes were red-rimmed but dry. Ms. Callahan, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, I told her. I didn't come here to ruin the wedding. I just came to exist. To be acknowledged. To stop being dead. She nodded slowly, understanding. Would you like to come inside? Sit down? We have some refreshments in. No, I interrupted gently. Thank you, but no. I think I've done what I came to do. I turned to leave, but Brandon's voice stopped me. Mrs. Callahan? Wait. I turned back. He looked older than he had 10 minutes ago, the weight of betrayal aging him in real time. I'm sorry, he said, for what she put you through. And I'm sorry you had to come here to get her to acknowledge you. I studied his face and saw genuine remorse there. Whatever else Rebecca had lied about, I didn't think she'd lied about loving him. And that made this worse somehow. She'd been willing to sacrifice me for him, and now she'd lost him anyway. I'm sorry too, I said. You deserved better than this. So did you. I nodded and walked out of that beautiful mansion into the cold December afternoon. The sun was setting early, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Guests were still arriving, oblivious to the drama that had just unfolded. I walked past them all, down the long driveway, my heels clicking on the pavement. I pulled out my phone and called Linda. She answered on the first ring. Dot? Are you okay? What happened? Can you come pick me up? My voice cracked. I need to go home. I'm already on my way. I waited at the end of the driveway, watching the sun sink lower, feeling the cold seep through my coat. In the distance, I could hear raised voices, chaos, the sound of 235 guests being told there wouldn't be a wedding today after all. I'd won. I'd exposed Rebecca's lies, forced her to acknowledge me, destroyed her perfect fairy tale moment. So why did I feel like I'd lost everything? Linda drove me home in silence, though I could feel her glancing at me every few minutes, worry etched across her face. I stared out the window, watching the expensive suburbs give way to modest neighborhoods and finally to my own working-class street. The contrast had never felt starker. I'd just left a world of marble floors and chandeliers and returned to cracked sidewalks and broken streetlights. When we pulled up to my building, Linda finally spoke. "You want me to come up? I don't think you should be alone right now." "I'm okay," I lied. "I just need some time to process." You just blew up your daughter's wedding. You need someone." "I need to be alone," I said more firmly than I intended. Then, softer, "I'm sorry. Thank you for driving me. I need to think." Linda looked like she wanted to argue, but she just squeezed my hand instead. "Call me if you need anything. Anything at all. Even if it's 3 in the morning. Promise me." I promised and climbed out of the car. My legs felt like lead as I walked up the 3 flights of stairs to my apartment. Inside, I kicked off my heels, peeled off the dress, and stood in my bathroom in my underwear, staring at my reflection. The woman looking back at me was a stranger. Makeup smudged, hair disheveled, eyes hollow with exhaustion. What had I done? I ran the shower as hot as I could stand it and stayed under the water until it ran cold, trying to wash away the memory of Rebecca's face contorted with hatred, her words echoing in my ears. "I wish you really were dead." I put on my oldest, softest pajamas and made tea I didn't drink. I sat on my couch in the dark, watching the headlights from passing cars play across my ceiling. The clock on my microwave said 7:47 p.m. By now, all those guests would have gone home. The caterers would be packing up untouched food. The florist would be collecting centerpieces that no one had admired. And Rebecca? Where was Rebecca? I wondered if she was alone somewhere, crying. I wondered if she was with friends, spinning the story to make herself the victim. I wondered if she was calling lawyers, trying to figure out if what I'd done was somehow illegal. Mostly, I wondered if she'd ever speak to me again. Not that it mattered. We hadn't been speaking for over a year. But at least before, there'd been the possibility of reconciliation, however remote. Now we'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. I'd humiliated her in front of everyone who mattered to her. She'd told me she wished I was dead. There was no coming back from that. My phone sat on the coffee table, face down. I'd turned off the ringer in the car and hadn't checked it since. Now, I picked it up with trembling hands. 47 missed calls. 63 text messages. My heart stopped. I scrolled through the notifications, my breath catching in my throat. Linda had called 3 times. But the rest? They were all from numbers I didn't recognize. Area codes from all over the state. And as I scrolled, I saw names in some of the text preview messages that made my blood run cold. *Brandon Montgomery. Mrs. Callahan, please call me back. We need to talk about what Rebecca did. Unknown number. This is Eleanor Montgomery. I know today was difficult, but I'd like to speak with you if you're willing. Unknown number. Mrs. Callahan, this is Jennifer Hartley. I'm a friend of Rebecca's from college. I just heard what happened and I need to talk to you about something she told me years ago. Unknown number. You don't know me, but I was at the wedding. What you did took incredible courage. My mother did something similar to me and I never had the guts to confront her. Thank you for showing me it's possible. I scrolled through message after message, some from wedding guests, some from people who'd heard through social media. Apparently someone had filmed at least part of the confrontation and it was already making the rounds, some from people claiming to be journalists wanting my side of the story. But there was nothing from Rebecca. I set the phone down, overwhelmed. I couldn't deal with this. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. I tried to sleep but spent hours tossing and turning, replaying the day over and over in my mind. Rebecca's face when she first saw me. Brandon's cold fury. Eleanor's quiet devastation. The way the security guards had to drag Rebecca away while she screamed. The hatred in her eyes when she looked at me that final time. Around 3 in the morning, my phone started ringing. I turned the ringer back on without thinking, and the sudden noise in the dark silence made me jolt upright, heart hammering. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But something made me reach for it, press the green button, lift it to my ear. Hello. Mrs. Callahan. A male voice, young, nervous. I'm so sorry to call so late. My name is Jeff Williams. I was supposed to be Brandon's best man. At the wedding. I sat up fully, turning on the lamp beside my bed. Okay. I wanted you to know what happened after you left. I thought you deserved to know. I waited, my throat tight. Brandon's a mess, Jeff continued. He's known Rebecca for 3 years, been planning to marry her for almost 1, and he just found out everything he knew about her was a lie. His parents are devastated. His mother keeps saying she should have known, should have seen the signs. His father's talking about the business implications. Rebecca was going to join the company, and now he's worried about what else she might have lied about on her resume, her references, all of it. I didn't want any of this, I whispered. I know. Brandon knows that too. He's not angry at you, Mrs. Callahan. He's angry at Rebecca. And at himself for not seeing through her. There was a pause, and I heard muffled voices in the background. Look, I need to go, Jeff said. But I wanted to tell you something else. After you left, after the security guards took Rebecca to get her things, she tried to sneak back into the mansion. She was screaming that she needed to talk to Brandon, that she could fix this. It took 3 people to keep her from forcing her way back inside. I closed my eyes. Where is she now? I don't know. She left in an Uber about an hour ago. But Mrs. Callahan? She's not done fighting. I've known Rebecca for 3 years, and I've never seen her give up on something she wants. She's going to try to find a way to spin this, to make you look like the bad guy, to win Brandon back. I just thought you should know. Thank you, I managed. And Mrs. Callahan? For what it's worth. What you did took guts. My own mom passed away when I was in high school, and I'd give anything to have her back, even if she embarrassed me or didn't fit in with my friends. Rebecca doesn't know how lucky she was to have you. He hung up, and I sat there in the lamplight, tears streaming down my face. The calls and messages continued all through the next day. I ignored most of them, but a few I couldn't resist reading. Asterisk Eleanor Montgomery, Dorothy, may I call you Dorothy? I wanted to reach out personally to apologize for what my son's former fiancé put you through. I also wanted to invite you to lunch this week if you're available. I feel we have things to discuss, and I'd like to hear your story properly. My treat, of course. Please call me at this number. Asterisk Brandon Montgomery, Mrs. Callahan, I've been thinking about everything that happened yesterday, and I realize I owe you an apology. I should have questioned Rebecca more thoroughly when she told me about her past. There were inconsistencies I ignored because I wanted to believe her. I'd like to make amends somehow, if you'll allow me. Please call when you're ready. Asterisk unknown number. This is Claudia Martinez, I'm a reporter with the State Journal. I'm working on a story about family estrangement and the pressure children from working-class backgrounds feel when they enter elite spaces. Your story is compelling, and I'd love to interview you. Standard rates apply for interview subjects. Please contact me. I deleted the reporter's message immediately. The last thing I needed was to become some kind of poster child for class warfare or family drama. But Eleanor's message stuck with me. There was something genuine in it, something kind. I didn't know if I was ready to face her again, to sit across from her at some expensive restaurant and rehash the most painful moments of my life. But part of me was curious. What could she possibly want to discuss? On Sunday morning, 2 days after the wedding I finally gathered the courage to call her. She answered on the second ring. Dorothy. Yes, it's me. I got your message about lunch. Oh, thank God. She sounded relieved. I was worried you wouldn't call. Are you free this Wednesday? There's a lovely bistro downtown, very quiet, very private. We could talk without interruption. Mrs. Montgomery, I appreciate the offer, but I don't think. Eleanor, she interrupted. Please call me Eleanor. And Dorothy, I'm not going to ambush you or make you uncomfortable. I simply want to understand what happened, and I want to apologize on behalf of my family for the role we played in this situation. You didn't play a role. Rebecca made her choices. Perhaps. But we made it easy for her to make those choices. Our family, our social circle, our expectations. We create an environment where people feel they have to be perfect, come from perfect backgrounds, have perfect histories. That's on us. I was quiet for a moment, surprised by her insight. Wednesday would be fine. Wonderful. I'll text you the address. Noon. Noon. I agreed. After I hung up, I felt simultaneously relieved and terrified. What was I getting myself into? The rest of Sunday passed in a blur of ignored phone calls and anxious pacing. I went to the grocery store and felt like everyone was staring at me, though logically I knew that was impossible. Most people in my neighborhood had no idea what had happened at some fancy wedding 40 miles away. Still, I hurried through my shopping and practically ran back to my apartment. Monday, I had to return to work. I'd used up my saved day off for the wedding, and I couldn't afford to miss more shifts. I arrived at my first job site, a downtown office building, and immediately ran into Linda. She rushed over, pulling me into a tight hug. I've been so worried about you. You didn't return any of my calls yesterday. I know, I'm sorry. I just needed time to process. What happened? After I dropped you off, I mean. Did she call you? Did you hear from her? I shook my head. Not from Rebecca. But I've gotten calls from Brandon, his mother, their friends, even a reporter. Everyone wants to talk except the one person who should want to talk to me. Linda's expression softened. Give her time, honey. She's probably mortified. She should be. That doesn't mean she won't come around eventually. When the dust settles, when she's had time to think about what she lost. I don't think she sees me as what she lost, I interrupted. I think she sees me as what cost her everything she wanted. Linda didn't have an answer for that, because we both knew I was right. Work helped distract me, at least temporarily. I scrubbed floors, emptied trash cans, cleaned bathrooms, let the familiar rhythm of labor quiet my racing thoughts. But every time my phone buzzed in my pocket, my heart would jump, hoping against hope that it would be Rebecca. It never was. Tuesday evening, as I was getting ready for bed, I got a call from a number with the same area code as Rebecca's phone. My hands shook as I answered it. Hello. Mrs. Callahan? This is Melissa Chen. There was that name again, Chen, but I couldn't control who called me. I'm Rebecca's roommate. Well, former roommate. She moved out over the summer, but we stayed close. Okay, I said cautiously. I just wanted you to know. Rebecca's not doing well. She's staying with a friend right now, barely eating, barely sleeping. She's convinced her life is over. Did she ask you to call me? No. God, no. She'd kill me if she knew I was talking to you. She's furious at you, Mrs. Callahan. She's blaming you for everything. Of course she is. But here's the thing, I've known Rebecca for 6 years, since freshman year, and I've watched her lie about a lot of things. Where she grew up, what her childhood was like, even little things like whether she'd read certain books or visited certain places. She always wanted to seem more sophisticated, more cultured, more than she was. Why are you telling me this? Melissa sighed. Because I think you deserve to know that what she did to you wasn't personal. Not really. She does this to everyone, rewrites her history to fit whatever image she thinks people want to see. You just happen to be the biggest inconvenient truth in her past. That doesn't make it hurt less. I know. And I'm not defending her. What she did was cruel and wrong. I just thought. I don't know. I thought maybe it would help to know that this is who she is. It's not about you being a cleaner or not being good enough. It's about her never feeling like she's good enough, so she lies to compensate. After Melissa hung up, I sat with that information for a long time. Part of me wanted to feel sympathy for Rebecca, to understand that her lies came from insecurity rather than malice. But another part of me, the part that had been erased, declared dead, told never to make contact again, couldn't summon that sympathy. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Wednesday arrived faster than I expected. I put on a nice blouse and slacks, not as formal as the dress I'd worn to the wedding, but respectable, and took the bus downtown to the bistro Eleanor had specified. It was one of those places with cloth napkins and a wine list longer than the food menu, the kind of place I'd have never entered on my own. Eleanor was already there, seated at a corner table, and she stood when she saw me approach. She looked different than she had at the wedding, less formal, wearing slacks and a cashmere sweater, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She looked tired. Dorothy, she said warmly, gesturing to the seat across from her. Thank you so much for coming. I sat down, accepting the menu from a hovering waiter. The prices made my stomach clench, $30 for a salad. But Eleanor had said this was her treat, so I tried to relax. I imagine this week has been difficult for you, Eleanor began once we'd ordered. That's putting it mildly. She smiled sadly. I can only imagine. It's been difficult for us as well. Brandon has barely left his apartment. He's questioning everything, not just about Rebecca, but about his own judgment, his ability to read people. Richard is furious, mostly at himself for not running a more thorough background check on Rebecca before Brandon got so serious with her. You would have run a background check on your son's fiancée. I couldn't keep the shock out of my voice. Eleanor had the grace to look embarrassed. Not in those words, but, yes. We're careful about who enters our family. We have to be. There are financial considerations, reputation issues, business partnerships that could be affected. I'm not proud of how calculating that sounds, but it's the reality of our world. And what would a background check have found? You, Eleanor said simply, alive and well and living in the city, working as a cleaner for the past 4 decades. Raised your daughter alone after your husband left. Sacrificed everything to give her opportunities you never had. That's what we would have found. And honestly, Dorothy, I would have been impressed. I stared at her, certain I'd misheard. Impressed. Absolutely. Do you have any idea how hard it is to raise a child alone on a cleaning woman's salary and still get that child into a school like Pembroke? That takes determination, resourcefulness, and incredible love. Those are exactly the kind of qualities I'd want to see in a family member. Tears pricked my eyes. Then why did Rebecca think she had to hide me? Eleanor reached across the table and covered my hand with hers. Because we, people like us, people with money and status, we send messages without meaning to. We talk about the right schools and the right families and the right backgrounds, and young people hear that and internalize it. They think that if their background isn't right, they need to invent one that is. Rebecca clearly felt she had to be ashamed of where she came from in order to fit into Brandon's world. And that's on us. That's on the culture we've created and perpetuated. Our food arrived, and we ate in thoughtful silence for a few minutes. The sandwich I'd ordered was delicious, but I could barely taste it. My mind was spinning with everything Eleanor had said. Brandon wants to meet with you, Eleanor said eventually. Not to talk about Rebecca. I think he needs more time before he can discuss her rationally, but to apologize. He feels terrible about how things unfolded. He has nothing to apologize for. He's the victim here as much as I am. Perhaps. But he was also complicit in a lie that hurt you deeply, even if he didn't know he was being complicit. I set down my fork. Eleanor, can I ask you something? Why are you being so kind to me? Your son's wedding was destroyed. Your family has been humiliated. You could easily blame me for showing up and causing a scene. Eleanor studied me for a long moment. My mother was a seamstress, she said quietly. She came to this country from Ireland with nothing and spent 40 years sewing clothes for wealthy women who barely acknowledged her existence. She died when I was 35, and I've regretted every day since that I never truly appreciated how hard she worked or how much she sacrificed. So when I see you, a woman who worked just as hard, sacrificed just as much, and was repaid with erasure, I see my mother. And I think about how devastated she would have been if I'd done to her what Rebecca did to you. So no, Dorothy, I don't blame you for showing up. I blame us, all of us, for creating a world where a daughter feels she has to kill off her mother to be accepted. I wiped my eyes with my napkin, not caring that my mascara was probably running. I don't know what to do now. I wanted her to acknowledge me, and she did. I wanted the truth to come out, and it did. But I don't feel vindicated. I just feel empty. That's because revenge doesn't heal wounds, Eleanor said gently. It just creates new ones. What you did was necessary, Dorothy. You had every right to exist, to be present, to stop being erased. But necessary doesn't always feel good. We talked for another hour, and by the time we parted ways, I felt something I hadn't expected. A fragile kind of friendship beginning to form. Eleanor gave me her personal cell phone number and made me promise to call if I needed anything. As I rode the bus home, I thought about how strange life was, that I'd lost my daughter but gained the compassion of the woman who should have been my enemy. That night, my phone rang at 11:30. An unknown number again, but this time from a different area code. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello. Mom. The voice was small, broken, barely recognizable. My heart stopped. Rebecca. Silence for a long moment, then the sound of crying. I didn't know who else to call. I sat down heavily on my couch, my hand pressed to my chest. Where are you? I'm at a hotel. Near the airport. I was going to fly somewhere, anywhere, just leave and start over, but I couldn't get on the plane. Why not? More crying, so intense I could barely make out her words. Because I realized that no matter where I go, I'll still be me. Still be the person who did what I did. Still be someone who told her own mother she wished she was dead. I closed my eyes, fighting my own tears. Rebecca. I'm so sorry, Mom. The words came out in a rush, desperate and raw. I'm so sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect anything. I just needed you to know that I'm sorry. For everything. For the phone call before graduation. For telling people you were dead. For what I said at the wedding. For all of it. Why did you do it? I had to ask, had to understand. Why was I such an embarrassment to you? You weren't, she sobbed. You aren't. I was the embarrassment. I was the one who wasn't good enough. All those people at Pembroke, they came from money and privilege, and I was a scholarship kid whose mom cleaned dorms. I was always so scared someone would find out, would realize I didn't belong there. So I started lying. Little lies at first. Then bigger ones. And by the time I met Brandon, the lie was so big I couldn't take it back without destroying everything I'd built. So you destroyed me instead? Yes. Her voice broke completely, and I will regret that for the rest of my life. We sat in silence, miles apart but connected by this fragile phone line. Part of me wanted to tell her I forgave her, to rush to that hotel and hold her while she cried, to fix this the way I'd fixed everything else in her life. But another part of me, the part that had been erased, that had watched her graduation alone, that had been told never to make contact again, that part couldn't let go so easily. I don't know if I can forgive you, I said honestly. Not yet. Maybe not ever. What you did. Rebecca, it broke something inside me. You didn't just lie about me being dead. You made me wish I actually was. I know, she whispered. And I hate myself for it. Hating yourself doesn't fix what you broke. I know that too. A long pause. I'm going to get help. Therapy. I'm going to figure out why I do this, why I lie, why I hurt people. And I'm going to work on becoming someone you could maybe be proud of again. Even if you never want to see me. I never stopped being proud of your accomplishments, I said. I just stopped being proud of who you'd become. I understand. More crying, quieter now. Mom? Can I ask you something? What? Why did you come to the wedding? You could have just stayed away, let me have my lies, lived your own life. Why did you have to expose me? I thought about that question carefully before answering. Because you declared me dead, Rebecca. And I needed to prove I was still alive. Not just to Brandon or his family or your friends. To myself. You made me feel like I didn't matter, like all the years I spent raising you were worthless. And I couldn't live with that. I couldn't let you erase me. I never thought about it that way, she said softly. I only thought about how it affected me, my life, my reputation. I never once considered what it did to you. That's the problem, Rebecca. You've spent so long thinking only about yourself that you forgot other people have feelings too. I know. Her voice was barely audible. I know. We talked for another 20 minutes, not solving anything, not fixing anything, just existing in the same painful space together. When we finally hung up, I felt exhausted but also strangely lighter. Rebecca had apologized. It wasn't enough, not nearly enough, but it was a start. I didn't hear from her again for several days after that call. But I did hear from Brandon. He called on Friday evening, his voice hesitant. Mrs. Callahan? It's Brandon Montgomery. Is this a good time? As good as any, I said. I wanted to meet with you in person, if you're willing. There are things I need to say, and I'd prefer to say them face to face. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop near my apartment on Saturday afternoon. I arrived early, nervous, not sure what to expect. Brandon showed up exactly on time, looking haggard and older than his 31 years. He'd lost weight, I noticed. His suit hung differently on his frame. We ordered coffee, he paid despite my protests, and sat at a corner table away from other customers. "Thank you for meeting me," he began. "I know this is awkward." "That's one word for it." He smiled weakly. "I've been doing a lot of thinking this week. About Rebecca, about our relationship, about everything she told me. And I keep coming back to one question: how did I not see it?" "See what?" "The lies. The inconsistencies. There were signs, Mrs. Callahan. Looking back, there were so many signs. She never wanted to talk about her childhood in detail. She had no photos of her mother, claimed. They'd all been lost in a fire. She changed the subject whenever my mother asked about her family history. I noticed all of it, but I told myself it was because the subject was painful for her. I never considered that she might be lying." "You loved her," I said. "Love makes us blind to things we don't want to see." "Maybe. Or maybe I didn't want to see because seeing would have complicated things. It was easier to believe her, to accept her story, than to dig deeper and risk discovering something that didn't fit the image I had of her." I sipped my coffee, studying him. "Do you still love her?" He was quiet for a long time. "I don't know. I loved who I thought she was. But that person doesn't exist. She was a character Rebecca created. So who do I love? The fiction or the woman behind it? That's something only you can answer." "She's been calling me," he admitted. "Texting. Emailing. Begging for a chance to explain, to fix things. Part of me wants to give her that chance. But another part of me knows that if I do, I'll just be enabling her to lie again." "Have you responded?" "No. My parents think I should cut all contact. My friends think I dodged a bullet. My lawyer, yes, I've consulted a lawyer about the financial entanglements, thinks I should be grateful we weren't actually married before I discovered the truth. Everyone has an opinion about what I should do." "But you're not asking me for my opinion," I said. "No," he agreed. "I'm asking you something else. Can you tell me about her? About who Rebecca really is? Because I realized I spent 3 years with her and I don't actually know anything true about her childhood, her upbringing, who she was before she became the person I met." So I told him. I told him about Rebecca as a little girl, curious and bright and full of energy. About how she loved reading, how I'd take her to the library every Saturday and she'd check out the maximum number of books allowed. About how she taught herself piano using YouTube videos because we couldn't afford lessons. About how she'd work 3 part-time jobs in high school to save money for college applications. About how determined she'd been to escape poverty, to build a better life. She wasn't always ashamed of where she came from, I said. When she was younger, she used to tell people I was a superhero because I worked all night while she slept so I could be there when she woke up in the morning. She'd draw me pictures of me with a cape and a cleaning cart. She was proud of me. "What changed?" Brandon asked. "College. Or maybe it started in high school, I don't know. She started spending time with people who had more money, more opportunities. She started seeing what their lives were like and comparing it to her own. And I think somewhere along the way, she started being ashamed. Not just of our circumstances, but of me specifically. Like my existence was evidence of her failure to transcend where she came from." Brandon shook his head slowly. "That's heartbreaking." "It is. But it's also honest. Rebecca did what she thought she had to do to survive in a world that values certain backgrounds over others. I'm not excusing what she did to me, I'm still furious at her, still hurt, but I understand why she did it." "Do you think she can change?" he asked. "Do you think people like her, people who lie like that, can become honest?" I thought about Rebecca's phone call, the raw desperation in her voice. I think people can change if they want to badly enough. But they have to want it. They have to do the work. And they have to be willing to face the consequences of who they've been. "I don't know if I can be with someone I don't trust," Brandon said quietly. "Then you have your answer." He nodded slowly, then reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. "I want to give you this." "What is it?" "Open it." I opened the envelope and found a check inside. My hands started shaking when I saw the amount, $50,000. "Brandon, I can't." "Yes, you can. Please." He held up a hand to stop my protests. "I know money doesn't fix what Rebecca did to you. I know it doesn't give you back the years she pretended you didn't exist. But I also know that you've spent your entire life sacrificing for her, and you deserve something for that. Consider it compensation for what our family put you through. Or don't consider it anything. Just take it and use it however you want. Retire early. Take a vacation. Save it. I don't care. I just want you to have it. Tears streamed down my face. This is too much. It's not nearly enough, he said firmly. Mrs. Callahan, I was going to marry your daughter. I was going to build a life with her. If things had gone according to plan, you would have been my mother-in-law. And even though that's not going to happen now, I still feel a responsibility to you. Please. Let me do this one thing. I stared at the check, at those impossible numbers, and thought about all the years I'd worked until my back ached and my hands bled. All the double shifts and missed meals and worn-out shoes. All the times I'd scraped together just enough to cover rent and utilities with nothing left over. Thank you, I whispered. We talked for a little longer, but there wasn't much left to say. As we parted ways, Brandon gave me his card and told me to call if I ever needed anything. I walked home in a daze, the check folded carefully in my purse, feeling like I'd somehow stumbled into someone else's life. That night, I deposited the check via my bank's mobile app, half convinced it would bounce or disappear. But it cleared within hours, and suddenly my bank account looked like something from a dream. For the first time in my entire life, I wasn't living paycheck to paycheck. I wasn't one unexpected expense away from disaster. I could breathe. The weekend after my coffee meeting with Brandon, I did something I hadn't done in over 20 years. I called in sick to work. Not because I was actually ill, but because I needed time to think, to process, to figure out what came next now that my life had been turned upside down. Linda called me within an hour of my absence. Are you okay? You never call in sick. I'm fine, I assured her. I just need a mental health day. This is about everything that happened, isn't it? The wedding, Rebecca, all of it. Yeah. There was a pause, then Linda said, I'm coming over after my shift. Don't argue. I'm bringing Chinese food and we're going to talk. She hung up before I could protest. True to her word, Linda showed up at my door at 7 p.m. with bags of takeout and a determined expression. We spread the food across my small kitchen table, more food than two people could reasonably eat, and I told her everything. About Eleanor's lunch invitation and our conversation about class and shame. About Brandon's apology and the check that was now sitting in my bank account. About Rebecca's late-night phone call and her broken apology. Linda listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding or making sympathetic sounds. When I finished, she sat back in her chair and whistled low. $50,000, she said. That's life-changing money. I know. What are you going to do with it? I don't know yet. Part of me feels like I shouldn't keep it. Like it's blood money or something. Linda reached across the table and grabbed my hand. Don't you dare give that money back. You earned it. Maybe not in the way you earned your paychecks, but you earned it by raising a daughter who went to an elite university, by sacrificing everything for her, by enduring 41 years of backbreaking work. That money is yours. Take it. But what do I do with it? Whatever the hell you want. Linda grinned. When's the last time you did something just for yourself? Not for Rebecca, not for work, not for anyone else. For you. I couldn't remember. The realization hit me hard. I literally could not remember the last time I'd done something purely for my own enjoyment or benefit. Exactly, Linda said, reading my expression. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to think about what would make you happy. Not what's practical or responsible or sensible. What would make you happy. And then you're going to do it. Over the next few days, I found myself thinking about Linda's question constantly. What would make me happy? For so long, my happiness had been tied to Rebecca's, her achievements, her success, her approval. But that was gone now, maybe forever. So what did I want for myself? The answer came to me while I was scrubbing a bathroom floor at a downtown hotel. My knees were aching, my back was screaming, and I was thinking about how many more years I could physically do this work. And suddenly I knew, I wanted to stop. I wanted to retire. I wanted to wake up in the morning without pain, wanted to spend my days doing things I chose instead of things I had to do to survive. At 63, I was still 2 years away from being able to collect Social Security. The $50,000 would bridge that gap. It wouldn't be a luxurious retirement, I'd still have to be careful with money, but it would be enough. I could stop destroying my body for minimum wage. I could rest. The decision, once made, felt liberating. I gave my 2 weeks' notice the following Monday. My supervisor was shocked. I'd worked for the cleaning company for 18 years and had never taken more than a few sick days. But I was firm. December 31st would be my last day. Linda hugged me so hard when I told her that she nearly cracked my ribs. I'm so proud of you. You deserve this. I feel guilty, I admitted. Like I'm taking the easy way out. The easy way out? You've been working since you were 15 years old. That's 48 years of labor. If anyone's earned the right to rest, it's you. Word spread quickly among my coworkers. People I'd worked alongside for years came up to congratulate me, to say they'd miss me, to ask what I'd do with all my free time. I didn't have good answers for that last question. I'd spent so long working that I'd forgotten how to imagine a life without it. Then, on a Thursday afternoon about 10 days after the wedding, I got a phone call that changed everything again. Mrs. Callahan? This is Vanessa Price. I'm an attorney with Morrison & Associates. My heart sank. Was this about the wedding? Had Rebecca decided to sue me for emotional distress or something equally absurd? Okay, I said cautiously. I'm calling on behalf of a client who wishes to remain anonymous for now. They've asked me to offer you a business proposition. A business proposition? Yes. My client was present at the Montgomery Callahan wedding, or rather, at the non-wedding. They witnessed what happened and were deeply moved by your story. They're interested in potentially working with you on a project, but they wanted to approach you through proper channels first to ensure you're interested before revealing their identity. I sat down heavily on my couch. What kind of project? They're writing a book, Vanessa said. A memoir about class, shame, and family estrangement. They believe your story would resonate with readers and they'd like to interview you extensively for one of the chapters. In exchange, they're offering a consulting fee of $25,000. I couldn't breathe. $25,000? 4 interviews? Yes. My client is quite successful and can afford to compensate you properly for your time and your story. Of course, you'd have full approval over how your story is portrayed. Nothing would be published without your consent. Who is this person? As I mentioned, they prefer to remain anonymous until you agree to meet with them. But I can tell you they're a published author with a major publishing house backing this project. The book is already under contract. They're simply looking for real stories to include. I didn't know what to say. Another $25,000? On top of Brandon's $50,000? It felt surreal, like someone else's life. I need time to think about it, I finally said. Of course. Take all the time you need. But Mrs. Callahan? My client specifically asked me to tell you something. They said, tell her this isn't about exploiting her pain. It's about honoring her truth. Does that make sense to you? Yes, I whispered. It does. I'll email you my contact information. Reach out when you're ready. After she hung up, I sat in silence for a long time. Then I did something I hadn't done in weeks. I called Rebecca's number. It went straight to voicemail. Her voice on the recording sounded younger, happier, recorded back when her life was still on track. I almost hung up, but then I heard the beep. Rebecca, it's Mom. I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I know you're angry and hurt and trying to figure out how to put your life back together. But I need you to know something. Someone wants to write about what happened. About us. About the wedding. They're offering me money to tell my story. And before I decide whether to do it, I wanted to give you a chance to tell me how you feel about it. Call me back if you want to talk. If you don't, I'll understand. But I'm not going to make this decision without at least trying to include you in it. I hung up and waited. An hour passed. 2 hours. By bedtime, Rebecca still hadn't called back. But the next morning, I woke up to a text message from her number. Don't do it. Please. I've lost everything already. Don't take away the one thing I have left, my privacy. I stared at the message, my emotions warring. Part of me wanted to honor her request, to protect her even after everything she'd done. But another part of me, the part that had been silenced for so long, wanted my story told. Not for revenge. Not for money. But because what had happened to me mattered. My pain mattered. My existence mattered. I texted back, I haven't decided yet. But if I do agree, it won't be to hurt you. It'll be to tell my truth. Those aren't the same thing. Asterisk. 3 dots appeared, indicating she was typing. They disappeared. Appeared again. Disappeared. Finally, a message came through. Asterisk, your truth is my nightmare. Asterisk. And there it was. The fundamental disconnect between us. My truth, the story of a mother who sacrificed everything and was erased for it, was Rebecca's nightmare because it exposed her lies, her shame, her cruelty. We couldn't both have our stories validated. One of us would have to remain silent. For 41 years, that silent person had been me. Not anymore. I called Vanessa Price back and told her I was interested in meeting her client. We arranged to meet at a hotel restaurant the following Wednesday. Vanessa arrived first, a polished woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a warmer smile than I'd expected from a lawyer. She ordered us both coffee and made small talk until a third person arrived. I recognized her immediately, Senator Patricia Worthington, a state senator who'd been in the news recently for her advocacy work around working-class issues and educational equity. She was in her late 60s, impeccably dressed, with silver hair and the kind of commanding presence that made people listen when she spoke. "Mrs. Callahan," she said, extending her hand. "Thank you so much for agreeing to meet with me." "Senator Worthington," I managed, shaking her hand. "I had no idea." "Please, call me Patricia. And I apologize for the secrecy, but I wanted to make sure you were comfortable with the idea before I revealed myself. May I sit?" I nodded, still stunned. A senator wanted to write about me? Patricia sat down and folded her hands on the table. "Let me explain why I'm here. I'm writing a memoir about my life in politics, but more specifically about the intersection of class and policy. About how the decisions we make at the governmental level affect real people's lives. And when I heard about what happened at the Montgomery wedding, yes, word spread quickly in certain circles, I knew I had to talk to you." "Why?" I asked. "I'm nobody. I'm just a cleaning woman who got humiliated at her daughter's wedding." "You're not nobody," Patricia said firmly. "You're exactly the person whose story needs to be told. Because you represent something our society desperately needs to confront. The way we devalue working-class labor while simultaneously depending on it. The way we shame people for doing necessary work. The way we force people to erase their own families to gain access to opportunities. I don't understand what that has to do with politics." "Everything. Think about it, Dorothy. If we valued working-class labor the way we claim to, if we paid people like you a living wage with benefits and dignity, would your daughter have felt the need to pretend you were dead? If we didn't treat certain jobs as shameful, would she have been embarrassed by what you do?" I'd never thought about it that way. I'd always seen Rebecca's shame as a personal failing, either hers or mine. But Patricia was suggesting it was systemic, cultural, bigger than just us. "I want to tell your story," Patricia continued, "not to exploit your pain, but to illustrate a point I've been trying to make my entire political career. That we have created a society that forces people to choose between economic mobility and family loyalty. That we've made shame a prerequisite for success if you come from the wrong background. Your story isn't just about you and Rebecca. It's about thousands of families dealing with similar tensions." "But Rebecca doesn't want me to do this," I said. "She asked me not to." "I understand that," Patricia said gently. "And if you decide not to participate, I'll respect that decision completely. But Dorothy, can I ask you something? How many times in your life have you put Rebecca's wants ahead of your own needs?" The question landed like a punch. Because the answer was, countless times. My entire adult life had been about prioritizing Rebecca's needs, wants, dreams, education, future. I'd never considered that I had a right to my own story, my own voice, my own choices. "This is your chance," Patricia said, "to take something back. Not for revenge. Not to hurt Rebecca. But to claim your own narrative. You've been erased, Dorothy. This is how you erase yourself." I met with Patricia twice more over the next 2 weeks. We talked for hours, about my childhood, my marriage, raising Rebecca alone, my work, the sacrifices, the phone call, the wedding. She recorded everything with my permission, taking notes, asking thoughtful questions, treating my story like it mattered. And slowly, I began to feel something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Seen. Not as Rebecca's mother. Not as someone's cleaner. Just as myself. Dorothy Callahan, a woman with her own story, her own pain, her own hard-won wisdom. Rebecca texted me several times during those 2 weeks, begging me to reconsider. Each message was more desperate than the last. Mom, please. I'm trying to rebuild my life. If you do this, it'll follow me forever. Asterisk, do you hate me that much? Enough to destroy any chance I have at a future? Asterisk, I said I was sorry. What more do you want from me? Asterisk. I didn't respond to any of them. Not because I wanted to punish her, but because I didn't have answers yet. I was still figuring out what I wanted, what I needed, what I deserved. On December 31st, my last day of work, my co-workers threw me a small retirement party in the break room of the office building we cleaned. Linda had bought a cake, someone else had brought champagne, cheap stuff, but it felt fancy to us, and they'd all chipped in to buy me a gift card to a local restaurant. Linda raised her plastic cup in a toast. The hardest worker I've ever known. The best friend I could ask for. And someone who deserves every good thing coming her way. Everyone cheered and clinked their cups, and I cried happy tears for the first time in months. That night, alone in my apartment, I stood at the window watching fireworks explode over the city skyline, welcoming in the new year. And I made a decision. I was going to let Patricia tell my story. Not to punish Rebecca. Not for money, though the $25,000 would help. But because my story deserved to be told. Because I deserved to exist, to matter, to be more than just a footnote in my daughter's carefully curated life. I texted Patricia, I'm in. Let's do this. Then I turned off my phone, poured myself a glass of wine, and watched the fireworks until they faded into smoke and darkness. If you're still with me through all of this, thank you. Check the description box below for more stories like mine. Stories of family, betrayal, and finding your own voice when everyone else wants you to stay silent. January brought cold, grey days and a strange new rhythm to my life. For the first time since I was 15 years old, I woke up without work to go to. No alarm clock set for 4 a.m. No rushing to catch buses. No aching back or calloused hands by the end of the day. Just time. Vast, unfamiliar stretches of time that I didn't know how to fill. The first week was disorienting. I'd wake up at my usual early hour, confused about why I wasn't getting dressed for work. I'd wander my apartment, making coffee, watching the sunrise through my kitchen window, feeling simultaneously liberated and lost. Who was I if I wasn't working? What was my purpose if not to labor, to sacrifice, to provide? Linda called me every other day to check in. You getting used to being a lady of leisure? She'd joke. I don't know what to do with myself, I'd admit. That's normal. Give it time. Your body needs to remember how to rest. Patricia and I continued our interviews throughout January. We met at her office in the State Capitol building, an impressive stone structure where her walls were covered with photographs of her with various politicians and activists. She made me tea, asked me questions, and listened with an intensity that made me feel like every word I spoke mattered. Tell me about the moment you decided to go to the wedding, she said during our third session. What was going through your mind? I thought back to that night in the hotel hallway, overhearing Rebecca and Eleanor discussing wedding plans. I think I realized that if I didn't do something, I'd spend the rest of my life being dead. Not just to Rebecca and her friends, but to myself. I'd start believing I deserved to be erased. Patricia nodded, writing notes. And when you walked up those steps at the Ashford estate, knowing you weren't invited, knowing you'd cause a scene, were you afraid? Terrified. But I was more afraid of disappearing completely. These conversations were therapeutic in a way I hadn't expected. Patricia had a gift for asking questions that made me examine my own motivations, my own feelings, things I'd never articulated even to myself. Through her questions, I began to understand that my decision to show up at the wedding wasn't just about Rebecca. It was about reclaiming a self I'd lost somewhere along the way, the self that existed independent of being someone's mother or someone's employee. Mid-January, I got an unexpected visitor. My building's intercom buzzed on a Wednesday afternoon, and when I answered, a familiar voice said, "Mrs. Callahan? It's Brandon. Can I come up?" I buzzed him in, confused and concerned. What was he doing here? He looked better than the last time I'd seen him, less haggard, though still carrying the weight of recent heartbreak in his eyes. He held a folder under one arm. "I'm sorry to show up unannounced," he said when I opened my apartment door. But there's something I think you should see. I led him into my small living room, suddenly aware of how shabby my furniture must look to someone like him. But he sat on my worn couch without comment, opening the folder. Rebecca's been contacting me, he said. Constantly. Emails, texts, letters. She won't give up. And at first, I ignored all of it. But then she sent me this. He handed me a printed email. I recognized Rebecca's writing style immediately. Eloquent, persuasive, carefully crafted. Brandon, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know what I did was unforgivable. But I need you to understand why I did it. My mother is not the saint she's pretended to be. Yes, she worked hard. Yes, she raised me alone. But she was also controlling, manipulative, and emotionally abusive. She resented my success because it highlighted her failures. When I got into Pembroke, she told me I was getting above my raising, that I'd forget where I came from. She made me feel guilty for wanting more than she had. I told people she was dead because, emotionally, she was dead to me. She'd killed my spirit with her constant criticism, her jealousy, her need to keep me small so she could feel bigger. Showing up at our wedding wasn't about love or hurt feelings. It was about control. About punishing me for escaping her grasp. I'm not asking you to take me back. I'm just asking you to see the whole picture before you make your final decision. My mother isn't the victim she's playing. She's a master manipulator who's turned everyone against me. Please, Brandon. Don't let her destroy what we had. Rebecca. I read the email twice, my hands shaking with rage. Every word was a lie. I'd never called her education getting above her raising. I'd never been jealous of her success. I'd been proud of it, devastatingly proud. And I'd certainly never tried to keep her small. I don't believe a word of this, Brandon said before I could speak. I wanted you to see it because I think you deserve to know what she's saying about you. She's rewriting history, I said, my voice tight. Again. That's what I thought. But I wanted to be sure. So I did something probably invasive. He pulled out another paper from the folder. I hired a private investigator to talk to people who knew you both. Your former neighbors, Rebecca's teachers, people from your church, co-workers. I needed to know if there was any truth to what she was claiming. He handed me a typewritten report. I scanned it quickly, my eyes catching on phrases. Dorothy Callahan was known in the neighborhood as a devoted mother who sacrificed everything for her daughter. Multiple teachers confirmed that Mrs. Callahan attended every parent-teacher conference, volunteered when she could despite her work schedule, and was openly proud of Rebecca's achievements. Former neighbor states. Worked herself to the bone for that girl. Rebecca was her whole world. The idea that was abusive or controlling is laughable. There's more, Brandon said quietly. But the summary is, everyone who actually knew you both says Rebecca is lying. You were a good mother. Maybe not perfect, no one is, but good. Loving. Supportive. The opposite of what she's claiming now. I set the report down, tears streaming down my face. Why would she do this? Lying about me being dead was bad enough, but now she's trying to make me into an abuser. Because she can't admit the truth, Brandon said. Which is that she was ashamed of you for no good reason except her own insecurity and social climbing. It's easier for her to paint you as a villain than to face what she really is. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Brandon said something that surprised me. I loved her, Mrs. Callahan. Or I loved who I thought she was. And part of me still wants to believe there's something salvageable there. Some kernel of the woman I fell in love with beneath all the lies. But every time I think about giving her another chance, she does something like this. He gestured to the email. She can't just be wrong. She has to make everyone else the villain. What are you going to do? I've already done it. I sent her a final email this morning telling her to stop contacting me. I told her I know she's lying about you, that I had it investigated, and that every lie she tells just confirms that breaking up with her was the right decision. He paused. I also told her that if she continues to harass you or spread lies about you, I'll pursue legal action for defamation. Brandon, you don't have to. Yes, I do. Because you've been victimized enough, and I refuse to stand by while she tries to destroy your reputation on top of everything else she's done. After Brandon left, I called Patricia and told her about Rebecca's email. She listened carefully, then said, "Dorothy, I need to ask you something difficult. Do you want me to include this in the book? The fact that Rebecca is now trying to rewrite your relationship as abusive." I thought about it carefully. Including it would make Rebecca look even worse. It would show the depths of her willingness to lie, to manipulate, to reframe reality to suit her needs. But it would also expose her more completely, hurt her more deeply. "Yes," I finally said. "Include it. Because people need to understand that this isn't just about a daughter being embarrassed by her working-class mother. It's about someone who will say absolutely anything to avoid taking responsibility for her own choices." "Are you sure? Once it's in print, you can't take it back." "I'm sure. I've spent too long protecting her from the consequences of her actions. I'm done." In early February, Patricia sent me the first draft of my chapter in her book. It was titled The Woman Who Came Back from the Dead, Class, Shame, and the Erasure of Inconvenient Families. Reading it was surreal. There I was, my life laid out in Patricia's elegant prose. My childhood struggles, my failed marriage, raising Rebecca alone, the sacrifices, the phone call, the wedding confrontation, Rebecca's subsequent attempts to paint me as abusive. Everything. But Patricia had done something I hadn't expected. She'd contextualized my story within larger social issues. She discussed how working-class families are systematically devalued, how children from these families often face intense pressure to distance themselves from their origins when they enter elite spaces, how shame becomes internalized and projected outward. She quoted sociologists, economists, other people who'd experienced similar family estrangements. My story wasn't just my story anymore. It was evidence of something bigger, something structural, something that affected countless families. "What do you think?" Patricia asked when we met to discuss the draft. "It's painful to read," I admitted. "But it's true. And it's important. I want you to publish it. Even knowing Rebecca will see it. That everyone will see it. Especially knowing that." The book was scheduled for publication in May. Patricia's publisher planned a significant marketing push. She was a sitting senator, after all, and her memoir was already generating advance buzz in political circles. In March, I got a letter from Rebecca. Not an email or text, but an actual handwritten letter delivered to my apartment. The envelope had no return address, but I recognized her handwriting immediately. *Mom****. I heard about the book. About your chapter. About how you're letting Senator Worthington turn our private family issues into political fodder. I can't stop you. I understand that. But I'm asking you, begging you, one last time to reconsider. Not for me. For you. Because once this is out there, once our story is public, there's no going back. You'll be the cleaning woman whose daughter pretended she was dead forever. Is that really how you want to be known? You always told me that our family business stayed in the family. That we didn't air our dirty laundry for the world to see. You're about to violate everything you taught me about privacy and dignity. I know you hate me. I know you think I'm a terrible person. Maybe I am. But I'm still your daughter. And I'm asking you to show me the same mercy you'd want if our positions were reversed. Please don't do this. Rebecca**. I read the letter 3 times, looking for any sign of genuine remorse, any acknowledgement of what she'd done wrong. But even in her plea for mercy, she was manipulating, making it about my reputation rather than her actions, invoking lessons about privacy while ignoring the fact that she'd been the one to make our family drama public by lying to hundreds of people. I wrote back. Just one sentence on a piece of notebook paper. You erased me first. I mailed it to the last address I had for her and didn't expect a response. I didn't get one. April brought an unexpected development. Eleanor Montgomery called me, her voice warm as always. "Dorothy, I hope I'm not overstepping, but I heard about Senator Worthington's book. About your chapter." My stomach clenched. "I hope that's not a problem for your family. I didn't include anything about you or Brandon without his permission." "Oh, I know. Brandon told me. And no, it's not a problem at all. Actually, I'm calling because I want to support you. The book launches in May, correct?" "Yes. May 15th. Patricia is doing a launch event at the downtown bookstore. I'd like to attend. And I'd like to bring some friends, other women who've dealt with family estrangement issues, who understand class shame, who I think would benefit from hearing your story. Would that be all right? I was stunned. You want to support me? Publicly? Of course. Dorothy, what happened to you matters. And I think it's incredibly brave that you're willing to share your story to help others. The least I can do is show up. What about Rebecca? Won't this seem like you're taking sides against her? Eleanor was quiet for a moment. Dorothy, I am taking sides against her. She lied to my son, to my family, to everyone who cared about her. She tried to destroy your reputation when you exposed her lies. I don't owe her my loyalty, but I do owe you my respect. The book launch was held on a warm May evening at the city's largest independent bookstore. I'd been nervous for weeks, barely sleeping the night before, convinced no one would show up except Patricia's political supporters who felt obligated. I was wrong. The store was packed. Over 200 people filled every available seat, with more standing in the back. I recognized some faces, Linda and several of my former co-workers, Brandon and Eleanor Montgomery, some of the wedding guests who'd witnessed the confrontation. But most were strangers, people who'd read advance reviews of Patricia's book and wanted to hear more. Patricia spoke first, introducing the book and explaining why she'd chosen to focus on issues of class and family. Then she introduced me, and I walked to the small podium on shaking legs. I'd prepared remarks, but when I looked out at all those faces, people who'd come to hear my story, who thought my experience mattered, the prepared speech fled my mind. My name is Dorothy Callahan, I began. And a year ago, my daughter told me she wished I was dead. Not metaphorically dead. Actually dead. Because I'm a cleaning woman, and that wasn't the kind of mother she wanted people to know she had. You could hear a pin drop in that bookstore. I spoke for 20 minutes, telling my story in my own words. About the phone call before graduation. About watching the ceremony alone on my laptop. About overhearing wedding plans and deciding to resurrect myself. About the confrontation and the aftermath. About Rebecca's attempts to reframe me as abusive. About learning to reclaim my own narrative. When I finished, the applause was thunderous. People stood. Some were crying. And in that moment, I felt something I'd never felt before, powerful. During the Q&A portion, a young woman in her 20s raised her hand. Mrs. Callahan, I'm a first-generation college student. My parents are immigrants who work in factories. And I've been lying about them to my college friends because I'm ashamed. After hearing your story, I'm ashamed of being ashamed. How do I fix this? I looked at her tear-streaked face and felt my heart break open. You start by telling the truth. You call your parents and you tell them you love them. And then you call your friends and you tell them you lied. Some of them might not understand. Some might judge you. But the ones worth keeping will respect your honesty. And honey, your parents' work is honorable. There's no shame in honest labor. The only shame is in pretending the people who love you don't exist. She nodded, wiping her eyes. Another hand went up, a middle-aged man. My son hasn't spoken to me in 5 years because he's embarrassed that I'm a mechanic and he's a doctor. Did you ever consider that maybe Rebecca was right? That maybe you were holding her back? The question was hostile, designed to rattle me, but I'd spent months in therapy working through exactly this question. No, I said firmly. Because supporting someone doesn't mean erasing yourself. My daughter didn't need me to be dead to succeed. She needed me to be invisible so she didn't have to deal with the discomfort of explaining where she came from. That's not about me holding her back. That's about her being unwilling to carry the weight of her own history. The crowd murmured approval, and the man sat down looking chastened. More questions followed. About forgiveness, I didn't know if I could. About reconciliation, I was open to it, but Rebecca had to do the work. About whether I regretted going to the wedding, no, never. About whether I'd take her back if she genuinely apologized, I honestly didn't know. After the official event ended, people lined up to talk to me personally, to thank me for sharing my story, to tell me their own versions of family estrangement and class shame, to hug me, cry with me, share their pain and hope. Eleanor and Brandon waited until the crowd thinned, then approached together. That was remarkable, Eleanor said, embracing me. You're a natural speaker, Dorothy. I was terrified, I admitted. It didn't show. Brandon smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from him since the wedding. Mrs. Callahan, I want you to know that I've started therapy. To work through the trust issues, the betrayal, all of it. And my therapist asked me something interesting. What would you want Rebecca's mother to know? And I realized I wanted you to know that you gave her every advantage in life. What she did with those advantages, what she chose to value, that's on her, not you. You were a good mother. Better than she deserved. Those words, better than she deserved, echoed in my mind long after the bookstore closed and everyone went home. That night, alone in my apartment with a signed copy of Patricia's book in my hands, I thought about Rebecca. Wondered where she was, what she was doing, whether she'd heard about the launch event. Wondered if she'd read the chapter about us, if it had affected her at all. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Asterisk I was there tonight. In the back. You didn't see me. Asterisk. My heart stopped. Rebecca. Asterisk I heard everything you said. About me, about us, about what I did. And I want you to know that you're right. About all of it. I was ashamed of you when I should have been proud. I erased you when I should have honored you. I lied when I should have told the truth. Asterisk. Asterisk I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that I'm sorry. Genuinely, completely sorry. Not because I got caught. Not because I lost Brandon. But because I hurt the one person who always loved me, no matter what. Asterisk. Asterisk I'm in therapy now. 3 times a week. Working on why I lie, why I feel like I'm never enough, why I hurt people. It's going to take years, maybe a lifetime. But I'm doing the work. Asterisk. Asterisk I don't know if we'll ever have a relationship again. I broke something that maybe can't be fixed. But I needed you to know that tonight, listening to you speak, I felt proud of you. Proud of your courage, your honesty, your strength. All the things I should have felt all along. Asterisk. Asterisk I love you, Mom. I never stopped, even when I acted like I didn't. I just didn't love myself enough to believe I deserved to be your daughter. Asterisk. I read the message over and over, tears streaming down my face. Was it enough? Was it real? Could we ever rebuild what had been destroyed? I didn't know. But for the first time in over a year, I felt something other than anger and pain when I thought about my daughter. I felt hope. I didn't respond that night. I needed time to process, to think, to decide what I wanted. But I saved the message, read it again before bed, and fell asleep with the smallest spark of possibility warming my chest. Revenge had brought me to this point, forced Rebecca to see me, to acknowledge what she'd done, to face consequences. But maybe, just maybe, what came next wouldn't be about revenge at all. Maybe it would be about something harder, more complicated, more human. Maybe it would be about forgiveness. Or maybe not. I hadn't decided yet. And that was okay. Because for the first time in my entire life, I was making decisions based on what I needed, what I deserved, what I wanted for myself. I was finally, truly alive. The days following the book launch were strange. Patricia's memoir hit the bestseller lists within a week. Her political prominence helped, but reviews specifically mentioned my chapter as one of the most powerful in the book. Suddenly, people recognized me on the street. Not many, but enough to be jarring. A woman at the grocery store approached me and said, "You're Dorothy Callahan, aren't you? I read your story. My daughter did something similar to me." We stood in the produce section for 20 minutes, crying and sharing our pain. I received hundreds of emails through Patricia's office. She'd offered to forward messages to me if I wanted them. Most were supportive, sharing similar experiences of family estrangement, class shame, children who distanced themselves from working-class parents. But some were cruel. One message called me a vindictive woman who'd destroyed her daughter's life out of jealousy. Another said I should have stayed silent, that airing family problems publicly was trashy and low-class. I learned quickly to delete the hateful ones without fully reading them. Rebecca's text message sat in my phone like a live wire I was afraid to touch. I must have opened it 50 times in those first few days, reading and rereading her words. Asterisk I felt proud of you. Asterisk asterisk I never stopped loving you. Asterisk asterisk I broke something that maybe can't be fixed. Asterisk. Linda asked me constantly whether I'd responded. What are you waiting for? I don't know, I'd say. The right words. The right feeling. Something. Do you want to forgive her? That was the question, wasn't it? Did I want to forgive Rebecca? Part of me did, The part that remembered her as a little girl, before everything got complicated. The part that missed having a daughter, missed the relationship we'd once had. But another part of me was still furious, still hurt, still unwilling to let her off the hook just because she'd sent one apologetic text message. I don't know if I can trust her, I finally admitted to Linda over coffee at her apartment. What if this is just another manipulation? What if she's only sorry because the book made her look bad? What if she's genuinely sorry? Linda countered. What if you never give her a chance to prove she's changed and you spend the rest of your life wondering what if? Or what if I give her a chance and she hurts me again? I barely survived the first time, Linda. I don't know if I could survive a second betrayal. Linda reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Then don't decide yet. Take your time. She's the one who broke this. Let her be the one who's uncertain, who's waiting, who's wondering if she'll ever be forgiven. You've spent enough of your life waiting for her. Let her wait for you. So that's what I did. I didn't respond to Rebecca's text. I didn't reach out. I simply existed in my new life, retired, financially stable for the first time in my life, slowly figuring out who Dorothy Callahan was when she wasn't defined by work or motherhood. I took a watercolor painting class at the community center. I'd always wanted to try art but never had the time or money. I was terrible at it, but I didn't care. I joined a book club at the library. I started volunteering at a soup kitchen, not because I needed the work, but because helping others made me feel purposeful. I traveled for the first time in my life, taking a bus tour to see fall foliage in Vermont. I bought new furniture for my apartment, replacing my sagging couch and worn-out armchair with pieces I actually chose rather than accepted from donations. I was building a life. My own life. Not one dictated by necessity or sacrifice or someone else's needs. A month after the book launch, I got a phone call from Brandon. Mrs. Callahan, I hope I'm not bothering you, but I wanted to let you know, Rebecca reached out to me again. My chest tightened. What did she want? To apologize. Actually apologize, not the manipulative stuff from before. She sent me a letter, a real letter, handwritten, 6 pages long. She took responsibility for lying, for using me, for trying to blame you when everything fell apart. She said she wasn't asking for another chance, just wanted me to know she understood what she'd done wrong. Do you believe her? He was quiet for a moment. I think I do. Which scares me, honestly, because I don't want to be the idiot who falls for her lies again. But the letter felt different. More honest. More broken, I guess. Are you going to respond? I already did. I thanked her for the apology and told her I appreciated her honesty, but I wasn't interested in rekindling our relationship. That I needed to move forward with someone I could trust completely, and I don't think I'll ever be able to trust her that way. How did she take it? She thanked me for being honest. Said she understood. Didn't try to change my mind or manipulate me into giving her another chance. Which, honestly, was the most UN Rebecca-like response she could have given. The old Rebecca would have fought harder, tried to convince me I was making a mistake. After we hung up, I thought about what Brandon had said. The old Rebecca. Was there a new Rebecca? Could people really change that fundamentally? In mid-June, 3 months after the book launch, I was volunteering at the soup kitchen when a young woman approached me. She was thin, tired-looking, wearing a server's uniform from a chain restaurant. Mrs. Callahan? I'm so sorry to bother you, but I recognized you from the book event. I watched the video online. That's all right, I said, ladling soup into bowls. What's your name? Amy. I wanted to tell you something. I did what you said. About telling the truth. Oh. I've been lying to my boyfriend and his family about where I come from. Told them my parents were both teachers. But they're actually farm workers, migrant workers. They move around following crops, been doing it their whole lives. And I was so ashamed, especially when my boyfriend's parents would talk about their family history, their educated ancestors. So I lied. She paused, wiping her eyes. After I saw your story, I couldn't do it anymore. I told my boyfriend the truth. About my parents, about growing up poor, about why I lied. And you know what he said? What? He said, that's the hardest thing I've ever seen anyone do. Thank you for trusting me enough to tell me the truth. He didn't care about where I came from. He cared that I'd lied. But he forgave me because I was honest about why. She grabbed my hand. Your story gave me the courage to be honest. And it saved my relationship. I just wanted you to know that. After she left, I stood at the soup station with tears in my eyes, thinking about ripple effects. How my pain, shared publicly, had helped someone else find courage. How sometimes the worst things that happen to us can become bridges for others walking similar paths. Maybe that's what Rebecca's betrayal had been for, not just my own growth, but as a story that could help others. That night, I finally responded to Rebecca's text. Just 3 words. I got it. The response came within minutes. Can we talk? Please. I stared at my phone for a long time. Then I typed. Not yet. But maybe someday. Another quick response. I'll wait as long as it takes. Summer passed. Patricia's book continued to sell well, and she invited me to speak at several events, bookstores, universities, even a TEDx talk about class shame and family estrangement. I was terrified every single time, but I did it anyway. Each time got a little easier. In August, I got a message from Melissa, Rebecca's former roommate. Mrs. Callahan, I thought you should know. Rebecca's been going to group therapy for people who struggle with compulsive lying. She shares about what she did to you in almost every session. I know because my therapist runs the group and mentioned it, without using names, but I figured out who she meant. She's really doing the work. I'm not telling you this to make you forgive her. Just thought you deserved to know she's trying to change, not just saying she is. Group therapy for compulsive liars. I didn't even know that existed. But it made sense. Rebecca hadn't just lied about me. According to everyone I talked to, she'd lied about nearly everything in her life, big and small. It was a pattern, a compulsion, maybe even an addiction. Did that excuse what she'd done? No. But it helped me understand it wasn't personal. She hadn't erased me because I was deficient. She'd erased me because she was. In September, 9 months after the wedding that never happened, Eleanor invited me to lunch again. I have news, she said over salads at the same bistro where we'd first really talked. Brandon's seeing someone. A nice woman he met at work. She knows everything, about Rebecca, about the wedding, about all of it. And she's not intimidated. That's wonderful, I said, genuinely happy for him. It is. And Dorothy, he's been taking your advice. My advice? About being honest from the start. He told this woman on their second date about what happened with Rebecca, about the lies, all of it. He said he learned from you that secrets poison relationships, so he's choosing radical honesty this time. I felt tears prick my eyes. I'm glad something good came out of all this. Eleanor reached across the table. So much good came out of it, Dorothy. You don't even know. My foundation has started a scholarship program for children of working-class families, specifically designed so they don't have to hide where they come from to receive support. We're calling it the Dorothy Callahan Scholarship. I nearly choked on my water. You're what? We wanted to honor what you went through by creating something that helps others. First-generation college students whose parents work in service industries, cleaning, food service, manual labor. Students who might otherwise feel pressure to hide their backgrounds. The scholarship includes mentorship and counseling support specifically around navigating class differences in elite educational spaces. Eleanor, I don't know what to say. Say you'll come to the launch event in October. Say you'll meet the first recipients. Say you'll let us honor the woman who had the courage to come back from the dead. I cried right there in the restaurant, not caring who saw. October arrived with falling leaves and cooler temperatures. The scholarship launch was held at a downtown hotel, not the one where I'd overheard Rebecca planning her wedding, thankfully. 20 students received the first Dorothy Callahan scholarships, each one giving a short speech about their background and their dreams. A young man whose mother cleaned houses, just like I had. A young woman whose father worked in a meatpacking plant. A brilliant kid whose parents were janitors at the very university he now attended. One by one, they shared their stories of shame, of lying about their families, of the pressure to erase where they came from. And one by one, they thanked me for showing them they didn't have to. You showed us that our parents' work has dignity, one girl said, her voice shaking with emotion. That we don't have to be ashamed. That we can honor where we came from while still reaching for something more. After the ceremony, I stood in a corner with a glass of champagne I wasn't drinking, overwhelmed by everything. A hand touched my shoulder gently. I turned. Rebecca stood there, wearing a simple dress, her hair pulled back, her face bare of the heavy makeup she used to wear. She looked younger. More real. More like the daughter I'd raised and less like the person she'd tried to become. "Hi, Mom," she whispered. I couldn't speak. I just stared at her, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. "I'm not here to ambush you," she said quickly. "Eleanor invited me. She thought maybe after you saw the scholarship, after you understood that your pain had helped other people, maybe you'd be ready to talk to me. But if you're not, I'll leave right now. I promise." "How did you know about the scholarship?" "Eleanor told me. A few months ago. She's been checking in on me. Making sure I'm really in therapy, really doing the work. I think she wanted to make sure I wasn't just faking it before she told you I was trying to change." "Smart woman, Eleanor. Are you?" I asked. "Really changing?" Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. "I'm trying. It's hard. Harder than anything I've ever done. Because I have to face what I did, who I was, every single day. My therapist says I used lying as a coping mechanism for feelings of inadequacy. That I created false identities because I didn't think my real self was good enough. And she's right. But understanding why I did it doesn't make what I did to you hurt less." We stood there in silence, people milling around us, celebrating the scholarship that existed because my daughter had tried to erase me. "I read your chapter in the book," Rebecca continued. "About 50 times. And every time, I found something new that broke my heart. Some detail about how much you loved me, how hard you worked for me, how much I hurt you. And Mom, I realized something." "What?" "I spent so long trying to become someone impressive, someone worthy of respect, that I forgot I came from someone who already was all those things. You were impressive. You were worthy of respect. And I was too blind and stupid and selfish to see it." "Why did you lie about me being abusive?" I asked. The question had haunted me for months. Saying I was dead was bad enough, but trying to make me into a monster. Rebecca closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face. "Because I needed it to not be my fault. If you were abusive, if you were terrible, then I was justified in cutting you off. Then I was the victim, not the villain. It was easier than admitting the truth, that I was ashamed of you for no good reason except my own shallow desire to impress people who didn't really care about me." "You hurt me," I said, my voice breaking. "So badly. You didn't just lie about me. You made me feel like I didn't deserve to exist." "I know. And I'm so sorry. I know sorry isn't enough. I know I can't undo what I did or take back the pain I caused. But Mom, I want you to know that I see it now. I see you. Really see you. Not as an embarrassment or an inconvenience, but as the woman who sacrificed everything to give me opportunities you never had. As the woman who loved me even when I treated you like garbage. As someone extraordinary." I wiped my eyes, struggling with emotions I couldn't name. Anger, hope, fear, love. All tangled together in a knot I couldn't untie. "I don't know if I can trust you again," I finally said. "I understand. I don't know if we can have a relationship. I understand that too. But I don't want you out of my life forever." The words surprised me, but once I said them, I knew they were true. "I'm just not ready yet." Rebecca nodded, more tears falling. "Whenever you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'll be here. I'll wait. I'll keep doing the work. And I'll try to become someone you can be proud of again." "I was always proud of your accomplishments," I said. "I just needed to also be proud of your character." "I'm working on that. Every day." We stood there for another moment, a foot of space between us that felt like miles. Then, slowly, tentatively, Rebecca reached out her hand. I looked at it. At her. At the daughter I'd raised and lost and was maybe, possibly, beginning to find again. I took her hand. We didn't hug. We didn't cry on each other's shoulders or have some dramatic reconciliation. We just held hands for 30 seconds while the scholarship recipients celebrated around us. Then I let go. "I need more time," I said. "I know," Rebecca replied. "Thank you for this. For these 30 seconds. It's more than I deserved." She left shortly after, and I watched her go, feeling something shift inside my chest. Not forgiveness, not yet. But the possibility of it. The smallest crack in the wall I'd built around my heart. Eleanor approached me after Rebecca had gone. That took courage. Both of you. Will she be okay? I think so. She's working 2 jobs now, nothing glamorous, restaurant server and retail clerk. She's living in a tiny studio apartment, building a life based on truth instead of lies. It's humble. But it's real. Did she ask you to tell me that? No. She specifically asked me not to tell you anything about her life unless you asked. She said she doesn't want you to feel pressured or manipulated into forgiving her. That sounded like growth. Real growth. Eleanor, can I ask you something? Why have you done all this for me? The scholarship, staying in touch with Rebecca, bringing us together tonight. She smiled sadly. Because I told you, my mother was a seamstress. And I never honored her properly while she was alive. I never acknowledged how hard she worked or how much she sacrificed. I took it all for granted. And when she died, I realized I'd lost the chance to tell her how much she mattered. So I'm your second chance. Maybe. Or maybe you're just someone who deserves to be honored, and I have the resources to do it. Either way, Dorothy, I'm grateful I met you. Even though the circumstances were terrible. That night, alone in my apartment, I thought about everything that had happened since that phone call before graduation. The betrayal. The pain. The revenge. The book. The scholarship. The baby steps toward possible reconciliation. And I realized something important. Revenge had served its purpose. It had forced Rebecca to see me, to face what she'd done, to begin the hard work of change. But revenge alone wouldn't heal me. It had been necessary, vital, even, but it wasn't sufficient. What I needed now was harder than revenge. I needed to figure out who I wanted to be moving forward. With or without Rebecca in my life. And slowly, painfully, beautifully, I was figuring it out. Thanksgiving arrived cold and grey. My first major holiday since retiring, since the book, since everything changed. Linda invited me to dinner with her family. She did this every year, knowing I'd otherwise spend it alone. But this year, I had options. Eleanor had invited me to the Montgomery family Thanksgiving, a gesture so generous it made me cry when she called. We'd love to have you, Dorothy. Brandon will be there with his new girlfriend, and I think you'd really enjoy meeting her. Even Rebecca had sent a tentative text. * I'm having Thanksgiving with some friends from group therapy. Other people working on being honest. If you wanted to come, you'd be welcome. No pressure. I ended up at Linda's, surrounded by her children and grandchildren, helping cook and feeling useful. But I sent polite thank you texts to both Eleanor and Rebecca, letting them know I appreciated the invitations. Rebecca's response was immediate. Thank you for responding. That means more than you know. We'd been texting sporadically since the scholarship event in October. Nothing deep, just small check-ins. She'd send me a photo of a sunset. I'd tell her about my watercolor class. She'd share that she'd gotten Employee of the Month at the restaurant where she worked. I'd say I was proud of her. Baby steps. In December, almost exactly a year after the wedding that never happened, Patricia invited me to a year-end celebration for her book. It had sold over 200,000 copies, an impressive number for a political memoir. My chapter was the most quoted, most discussed, most referenced in reviews and social media. You've become an icon, Patricia told me at the party. Do you know there's a whole social media movement now of people sharing their working-class parent stories, refusing to hide where they come from? They're calling it the #Callahan Challenge. I pulled out my phone. I'd finally learned how to use social media, thanks to a patient teenager at the library, and searched the hashtag. Thousands of posts. Young people posting pictures with their parents who worked as cleaners, construction workers, truck drivers, factory workers. Captions like, "My dad's a garbage collector and I used to lie about it. Not anymore. #Callahan Challenge and Mom worked 3 jobs to put me through college. I'm done being ashamed. #Callahan Challenge." I scrolled through them with tears in my eyes. My pain, my public confrontation with Rebecca, had somehow sparked a movement. People were choosing honesty over shame, truth over social climbing. There's something else, Patricia said, pulling me aside. I've been contacted by several universities who want you to speak to their first-generation college students. They're offering honorariums, good money, Dorothy. And they genuinely want to hear your perspective on navigating class differences in educational settings. I'm not a speaker, I protested. I'm just. Don't you dare say just a cleaning woman, Patricia interrupted firmly. You're a mother, a survivor, an advocate, and someone with lived experience that thousands of students desperately need to hear about. Say yes. So I did. Throughout the winter and into spring, I traveled to college campuses across the state, speaking to groups of students who came from backgrounds like mine. Kids whose parents cleaned houses, drove trucks, worked in warehouses, picked crops. Kids who understood the shame of not fitting in, the pressure to hide where they came from. I told them my story, but more importantly, I listened to theirs. A young man whose father was a prison guard and who'd lied about it for 3 years, saying his dad was a security consultant. A young woman whose mother was a home health aide, basically a nurse, she'd tell people, which was technically true but deliberately misleading about the pay and prestige. A student whose parents ran a small laundromat and who told his roommates they owned a chain of businesses. They all carried the same shame I'd seen in Rebecca. The same fear that their parents' honest work made them less worthy, less deserving, less valuable. Your parents' work has dignity, I'd tell them, the same message I'd been telling myself for the past year. There is no shame in labor that puts food on the table and roofs over heads. The only shame is in deciding that someone's worth is determined by their tax bracket or their job title. After one particularly emotional talk at a small liberal arts college, a professor approached me. She was in her 50s, impeccably dressed, clearly successful. Mrs. Callahan, I wanted to thank you. My mother was a cafeteria worker. She died 10 years ago, and I never once invited her to campus when I was a student here. I was too embarrassed. I've regretted it every day since. Your story has helped me forgive myself, at least a little bit. And I've started a support group for faculty who come from working-class backgrounds, so we can mentor students who might otherwise feel alone. These conversations, these connections, became the unexpected gift from my year of pain. I'd wanted Rebecca to see me, to acknowledge me. I'd gotten that. But I'd also somehow helped thousands of other people see and acknowledge their own parents, their own histories, their own worth. In March, Rebecca asked if we could have coffee. Not lunch, nothing formal, just coffee at a neutral location. I agreed, my stomach in knots the entire morning before. We met at a small cafe near the university where I'd given a talk the previous week. Rebecca arrived early. I could see her through the window, sitting at a corner table, nervously shredding a napkin. She looked different than she had at the scholarship event. Thinner, but healthier somehow. Her clothes were simple, jeans and a sweater, nothing designer or expensive. Her hair was natural, not the carefully styled perfection she used to maintain. She wore minimal makeup. She looked like someone who'd stopped performing and started just being. "Hi, Mom," she said when I sat down. "Hi, Rebecca." We ordered coffee. Made small talk about the weather, the cafe, neutral topics. Then Rebecca took a deep breath. "I need to tell you something. I've been accepted to a master's program in social work. I'm starting in the fall." Social work. I couldn't hide my surprise. Rebecca had been so focused on business, on climbing corporate ladders, on making money. I know. It's not what you'd expect from me. But I've been thinking a lot about why I lied, why I felt so inadequate, and I realized I want to help other people who struggle with the same issues. People who feel like they have to hide who they are to be accepted. Kids from backgrounds like mine, like ours, who don't have anyone to tell them that where they come from matters, that it's part of their strength, not their weakness. I stared at her, trying to process this information. That's wonderful, Rebecca. I wanted you to be the first to know. Well, second. My therapist knows. But after her, you. She paused, fidgeting with her coffee cup. Mom, I've been thinking about making amends. Real amends, not just apologies. And I wanted to ask, is there anything I can do? Anything that would help you heal from what I did? I'd thought about this question many times over the past months. What did I need from Rebecca? What would make this better? I need you to stay in therapy, I said finally. I need you to keep doing the work, not just for a few months but for years. I need to see sustained change, not just temporary remorse. I will. I promise. And I need you to be honest. With everyone. Even when it's hard. Even when it would be easier to lie. Because I can't have a relationship with someone I can't trust. I understand. I've been practicing that. It's terrifying, but I'm doing it. And Rebecca, I need time. I need space. I need you to understand that my forgiveness isn't guaranteed, and it's not going to happen on your timeline. It's going to happen on mine, if it happens at all. She nodded, tears in her eyes. That's fair. More than fair. Thank you for even giving me a chance. We talked for an hour, the longest conversation we'd had in over a year. She told me about her therapy, about the group for compulsive liars, about how hard it was to rebuild her life from scratch at 34. About how she'd lost touch with most of her college friends. They'd all been part of the world she'd built on lies, and she couldn't maintain those relationships without continuing to lie. I'm lonely, she admitted. But it's an honest loneliness, if that makes sense. I'm alone because I'm being real, not because no one wants to know the real me, and that feels better somehow. I told her about my speaking engagements, about the #Callahan Challenge, about the scholarship recipients I'd met, about my watercolor class and book club and the life I was building for myself. You sound happy, Rebecca said softly. Genuinely happy. I don't think I've ever heard you sound like this. I am happy. Not all the time. I still have hard days. But I'm living for myself now, not for you or for work or for anyone else's expectations. It's liberating. As we were leaving, Rebecca hugged me. I stiffened at first, then slowly relaxed into it. It wasn't comfortable, not yet. But it wasn't terrible either. Thank you for this, she whispered. For seeing me. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. She'd spent years refusing to see me, and now she was thanking me for seeing her. Call me next week, I said. We can do this again. Her face lit up. Really? Really? But Rebecca. Slow. We're taking this slow. Slow is good. Slow is great. Thank you, Mom. Over the next months, we had coffee once a week. Sometimes twice. We talked about her therapy, her classes, her new life. I told her about my travels. I'd used some of Brandon's money to visit places I'd only dreamed of, Washington, D.C., Boston, even a weekend trip to New York City. We didn't talk much about the wedding, about what had happened. Not because we were avoiding it, but because we'd both said everything that needed to be said. Now we were just trying to figure out how to be in each other's lives again. In June, Rebecca graduated from a certification program she'd been taking as preparation for her master's degree. She invited me to the ceremony, then immediately backtracked. But if you're not ready, I completely understand. I know that graduations might be triggering after what I did before. I thought about it carefully. The memory of watching her college graduation alone on my laptop still hurt. But this was different. This was Rebecca asking, not demanding. Rebecca including me, not erasing me. I'll be there, I said. The ceremony was small, held in a community college auditorium. Nothing like Pembroke's elaborate graduation. Rebecca walked across the stage in a simple black gown, and when they called her name, she looked right at me in the audience and smiled. After the ceremony, she introduced me to her classmates. This is my mom, Dorothy. She's a retired cleaning woman and the bravest person I know. No lies. No embellishments. Just the truth. One of her classmates, an older woman, shook my hand warmly. Rebecca talks about you all the time in our classes. About how you raised her alone, about the sacrifices you made. She's inspired us to examine our own relationships with our families. Rebecca blushed. Mom, I hope it's okay that I talk about you. About us. It's part of my learning process, examining what I did, why I did it, how to prevent patterns like that in others. It's okay, I said. And I meant it. That night, Rebecca and I had dinner together. Not at some expensive restaurant where I'd feel out of place, but at a small Italian place near her apartment. The kind of place with red and white checkered tablecloths and candles stuck in wine bottles. I want to show you something, Rebecca said, pulling out her phone. She navigated to Instagram and showed me her profile. It was private now, not the public-facing persona she used to maintain. But the bio made me catch my breath. Rebecca Callahan. MSW student. Daughter of Dorothy, the strongest woman I know. Learning to live honestly. You don't have to keep that, I said, blinking back tears. I know social media is important to your generation, and I don't want I want it there, Rebecca interrupted. I want everyone who knows me to know about you. Not because I'm trying to prove something or perform some kind of redemption, but because it's true. You are the strongest woman I know. And I'm done hiding that. As we ate pasta and shared a bottle of wine, a rare indulgence for both of us, Rebecca said something that surprised me. Mom, I've been thinking about Dad. I stiffened. I hadn't heard from my ex-husband in over 3 decades. For all I knew, he was dead. What about him? My therapist thinks part of why I lied about you was because Dad abandoned us. Like, on some level I believed that if you'd been more impressive, more educated, more something, he wouldn't have left. So I decided you weren't good enough. Which is completely irrational and unfair, but that's what I internalized. Your father left because he's selfish and immature, I said firmly. It had nothing to do with me not being good enough. I know that now. Intellectually, I always knew it. But emotionally, I think I blamed you. And then I punished you for something that was his fault. We talked about her father for a while, about abandonment and its long-term effects, about how children internalize their parents' choices. It was heavy, painful conversation. But it was also healing, in a strange way. We were finally being honest about things we'd never discussed. Have you thought about trying to find him? I asked. No. He made his choice. He's had 33 years to reach out if he wanted to. I'm not interested in chasing someone who didn't want to be found. I respected that. By July, we were seeing each other twice a week. Coffee on Wednesdays, dinner on Sundays. We'd established a rhythm, a routine. It wasn't the mother-daughter relationship we'd had when she was young. That was gone, broken, probably irretrievable. But this new thing we were building? It was tentative and fragile, but it was honest. And honesty, I was learning, was worth more than comfort. Linda met Rebecca for the first time at a Sunday dinner I hosted at my apartment. I was nervous. Linda had heard all the worst stories, had held me while I cried, had witnessed my pain firsthand. What if she couldn't forgive Rebecca? What if she was hostile or cold? But Linda surprised me. She was cordial but reserved, assessing Rebecca carefully. And Rebecca, to her credit, didn't try to charm her way into Linda's good graces. I know you have every reason to hate me, Rebecca told Linda over dessert. You've seen what I did to Mom. You've been there for her when I wasn't. I just want you to know that I'm grateful she had someone like you when I was too selfish to be there myself. Linda studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Your mother is one of the best people I know. She deserves the world. If you're genuinely trying to become someone worthy of her, I respect that. But if you hurt her again, Rebecca, you'll have to deal with me. Understood? Understood, Rebecca said quietly. After Linda left, Rebecca helped me clean up. As we washed dishes side by side, something we'd done 1,000 times when she was growing up, she said, I like her. She's protective of you. You deserve people like that in your life. I do, I agreed. And Rebecca, I think you might be becoming someone like that too. Someone who protects rather than hurts. It's a good look on you. She smiled through tears. That might be the nicest thing you've said to me in 2 years. In August, Eleanor invited both Rebecca and me to a brunch at her home. I thought it might be nice for us all to catch up, she said when she called. Brandon and his girlfriend Alexis will be there too. No pressure, but I'd love for you both to come. I consulted Rebecca before responding. What do you think? Are you ready to see Brandon? Honestly, I'm terrified. But I think I need to. I need to apologize to him in person, not just through letters and messages. If he's willing to see me. Brandon was willing. And the brunch, while initially awkward, turned out to be surprisingly pleasant. Brandon and Alexis were warm and welcoming. Alexis, a lawyer who specialized in non-profit work, asked me about my speaking engagements and seemed genuinely interested. Rebecca and Brandon spoke privately on Eleanor's patio while the rest of us deliberately gave them space. Through the window, I could see them talking, both looking serious. At one point, Rebecca was crying and Brandon handed her a tissue. When they came back inside, both looked lighter somehow. We're okay, Brandon told me quietly. Not friends, maybe not ever. But we've made peace with what happened. That's enough. Rebecca confirmed this later. He forgives me. Not in a let's get back together way, but in a I don't carry anger toward you anymore way. He said his grateful things ended when they did, because he's truly happy with Alexis. And he said he hopes I find the same kind of happiness someday. That's generous of him. It is. More generous than I deserve. By September, as Rebecca prepared to start her master's program, we'd settled into something that felt sustainable. We weren't completely healed, there were still moments of tension, still topics we navigated carefully, still trust that needed to be rebuilt over time. But we were trying. Both of us. She called me one evening, her voice excited. "Mom, I got matched with my field placement for next year. I'll be working with at-risk youth, specifically kids dealing with shame issues around their family backgrounds." "That's perfect for you." "I know. And Mom? I'm going to tell them about us. About what I did, how I lied, the consequences. I think it might help them see that those feelings of inadequacy are common, that they don't have to make the same mistakes I did." "I'm proud of you, Rebecca." I said it without thinking, and the moment the words left my mouth, I realized they were true. I was proud of her. Not for her accomplishments or her education, but for her willingness to face what she'd done, to do the hard work of change, to use her mistakes to help others. "Thank you," she whispered. "That means everything." As fall arrived and leaves began to turn, I found myself thinking about where I'd been a year ago. Hurt, angry, planning revenge, determined to expose Rebecca's lies at her wedding. That version of me had been justified in her anger, righteous in her pain. And the revenge had been necessary. It had forced truth into the light, had stopped me from remaining erased. But this version of me, the one I'd become over the past year, was something different. Healed. Mostly. Cautiously hopeful. Building a life that had meaning beyond work and motherhood. Connected to my daughter again, but not defined by that relationship. I'd learned something important. Revenge could tear down lies, but it couldn't build truth. That had to come after, slowly, painfully, through consistent effort and genuine change. And we were doing it. Rebecca and I building something true from the ashes of what had burned. It wasn't perfect. It never would be. But it was real. And after a lifetime of dealing with lies, real was enough. The 2-year anniversary of the wedding that never happened arrived on a December morning much like that original day, cold, bright, crystalline with winter light. I woke early out of habit, made coffee, and stood at my kitchen window watching the city come alive below. 2 years. So much had changed. So much had been lost and found and rebuilt. My phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. *2 years ago today, my life fell apart. Best thing that ever happened to me. Love you, Mom. I smiled and texted back, *love you too, sweetheart. Sweetheart. I hadn't called her that in years, not since before the phone call that started everything. But it felt right now. She'd earned it back, one coffee date, one honest conversation, one therapy session at a time. Patricia's book was being adapted into a documentary, and the filmmakers wanted to interview both Rebecca and me. We'd agreed, but on our terms, we'd be interviewed together, showing where we were now rather than just dwelling on the worst moments of our past. I think it's important for people to see that estrangement doesn't have to be permanent, Rebecca had said when we discussed it. That if both people are willing to do the work, healing is possible. Healing, yes, I'd corrected her gently. But not forgetting. I'll never forget what happened, Rebecca. It's part of our story now. I know. And I don't want you to forget. I want you to remember so I can never let myself become that person again. The documentary filming was scheduled for January. But today, December 14th, we'd planned something else, something private, just for us. Rebecca picked me up at noon. She'd bought a car, nothing fancy, a used Toyota, but reliable. Another sign of her new life built on truth rather than pretense. "Where are we going?" I asked as we drove north out of the city. "You'll see." She was nervous, I could tell. Her hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, and she kept biting her lower lip, a childhood habit that resurged when she was anxious. After 40 minutes, I recognized where we were heading, the Ashford estate. "Rebecca." I called ahead, she interrupted. I explained everything to the events manager. He remembers what happened, how could he forget? But he agreed to let us visit. The estate isn't booked today. It's just us. We pulled up to those imposing gates, and I felt my chest tighten with memory. 2 years ago, I'd walked up to this place as an intruder, uninvited and unwelcome. Now I was returning with my daughter by choice. The events manager met us at the entrance, a different person than before, younger, clearly briefed on our history. Mrs. Callahan, Ms. Callahan, welcome. Take all the time you need. I'll be in my office if you need anything. Rebecca led me through the mansion to the grand ballroom where her wedding should have taken place. It was empty now, elegant and echoing, winter light streaming through tall windows. Why are we here? I asked quietly. Rebecca took a deep breath. Because this is where everything broke. And I wanted to come back here with you to show that we're putting it back together. That this place doesn't just represent the worst day of both our lives. It can represent something else now. She pulled out her phone and opened it to a document she'd clearly prepared. I wrote you something. A letter I've been working on in therapy for months. Can I read it to you? I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. Rebecca began reading, her voice shaking. Dear Mom, 2 years ago in this room, you walked back into my life after I tried to erase you. You stood up for yourself when I tried to silence you. You demanded to be seen when I declared you dead. I've spent 2 years trying to understand why I did what I did. And I've learned that it wasn't about you at all. It was about me, my insecurity, my shame, my desperate need to be someone other than who I was. I convinced myself that erasing you would make me more acceptable, more worthy, more successful. But you know what actually happened? Erasing you made me less of everything. Less honest. Less human. Less myself. You were never the problem, Mom. I was. You were always enough. More than enough. You were extraordinary, and I was too blind and selfish to see it. I can't undo what I did. I can't give you back the year you spent being dead to me. I can't erase my cruelty or my lies. But I can promise you this, I will spend the rest of my life trying to become someone worthy of the mother you were to me. Someone honest. Someone brave. Someone who honors where she came from instead of running from it. Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I gave you every reason to. Thank you for showing me what real strength looks like. Thank you for teaching me, through your example, that dignity doesn't come from money or status or social climbing. It comes from knowing your own worth, regardless of what anyone else thinks. I love you, Mom. I always have, even when I acted like I didn't. And I always will, for the rest of my life. Your daughter. Rebecca. She finished reading and looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. I wanted to read that to you here, in this room, because this is where I lost myself. And this is where I want to find myself again, as your daughter. Really your daughter, not the fake version I created. I couldn't speak. I just pulled her into a hug and held her while we both cried, our tears mixing together, 2 years of pain and healing and hard work flowing out of us. I forgive you, I whispered into her hair. Not because you've earned it, though you have. But because holding on to anger was killing me. I forgive you, Rebecca. Completely. She sobbed harder. Thank you. Thank you. I don't deserve it, but thank you. You deserve it, I said firmly, pulling back to look at her face. The person you were 2 years ago didn't deserve it. But the person you've become? The person who's done the work, who's been honest, who's genuinely changed. She deserves forgiveness. We sat in that empty ballroom for an hour, talking about everything. About her master's program, she was thriving, getting top marks, already being recruited by agencies for post-graduation positions. About my speaking engagements, I'd been invited to give a TEDx talk in the spring. About Brandon and Alexis, they'd gotten engaged, and Eleanor had shown me the ring, a simple, elegant design that suited Alexis perfectly. About the Dorothy Callahan Scholarship, it was expanding to 5 more universities next year. I want to donate to the scholarship, Rebecca said suddenly. I don't have a lot of money, obviously, but I want to contribute something every month. $100. Whatever I can afford. Because those students are getting what I should have had, support for staying connected to their families instead of pressure to hide them. That's a beautiful gesture, I said. It's the least I can do. As we were leaving the estate, Rebecca stopped at the entrance and looked back at the grand ballroom. You know what's funny? I thought my wedding day would be the happiest day of my life. But today, this is happier. Because it's real. And I'm here with the person who matters most. We drove back to the city mostly in silence, a comfortable silence that felt like peace. Rebecca dropped me off at my apartment and we made plans for our standing Sunday dinner. Same place as usual? She asked. Actually, I was thinking I could cook. It's been a long time since I made dinner for you. Her face lit up. Really? I'd love that. Can you make your meatloaf? I've missed it. Of course. After she drove away, I went upstairs and found myself looking through old photo albums I'd kept in the closet. Pictures of Rebecca as a baby, as a toddler, as a child. Halloween costumes I'd sewn by hand. Birthday parties I'd thrown on shoestring budgets. Her high school graduation, both of us grinning at the camera, her arm around my shoulders. That girl in those photos had loved me, had been proud of me. Somewhere along the way, she'd lost that. But she'd found it again. We'd found each other again. My phone rang. Eleanor. Dorothy, I hope I'm not disturbing you, but I have exciting news. The scholarship board met today, and we've decided to make a major expansion. We're going nationwide next year. The Dorothy Callahan Scholarship will be available to first-generation college students in all 50 states. I sat down heavily. Eleanor, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. Just know that your courage, walking into that wedding, refusing to stay erased, has changed countless lives. You've started a movement, Dorothy. A movement toward honesty and dignity and honoring working-class families. After we hung up, I sat in my living room as evening fell, thinking about the strange, winding path that had brought me here. From scrubbing floors in the middle of the night to speaking at universities. From being declared dead to having a scholarship named after me. From losing my daughter to finding her again, different but real. If someone had told me 2 years ago that Rebecca's betrayal would lead to all this, the book, the speaking engagements, the scholarship, the reconciliation, I wouldn't have believed them. I'd been so focused on the pain, on the anger, on the need for revenge, that I couldn't have imagined anything good coming from it. But somehow, it had. Not because betrayal is good, it's not. Not because pain has a purpose, sometimes it doesn't. But because I'd refused to stay silent, refused to remain erased, refused to let my daughter's shame define my worth. I'd come back from the dead. And in doing so, I discovered a version of myself I'd never known existed. A version that was strong, articulate, valuable, seen. Sunday dinner came, and I spent all afternoon cooking. Meatloaf, mashed potatoes, green beans, homemade rolls. The kind of meal I used to make for Rebecca when she was young, before everything got complicated. She arrived exactly on time, carrying a bottle of wine and a small wrapped package. What's this? I asked. Open it. Inside was a framed photograph, one I'd never seen before. It was from her college graduation, the one I'd watched on my laptop. Somehow, she'd tracked down the professional photographer and found this photo. Rebecca crossing the stage, her face turned toward the audience, eyes scanning the crowd. Looking for someone who wasn't there. Looking for me. I wanted you to have this, Rebecca said quietly. As a reminder of what I did, but also of why things had to change. I want you to look at this picture and remember that you refused to stay invisible. That you demanded to be seen. And that you were right to do it. I hung it on my wall, right next to a newer photo. The two of us at the scholarship launch, standing together, smiling, real. Before and after. Erased and seen. Lost and found. We ate dinner at my small kitchen table, the same table where I'd done her homework with her as a child, where I'd helped her fill out college applications, where I'd sat alone for months after she'd cut me out of her life. Mom, Rebecca said as we were cleaning up. Can I ask you something? Anything. Do you think you'll ever completely trust me again? Like, the way you did when I was younger? I thought about it carefully. I don't know. I hope so. But Rebecca, trust isn't something that just comes back because enough time has passed. It's built slowly, through consistency. Through you showing up, again and again, and being honest, again and again. It's already coming back. I can feel it. But it's fragile. We both need to handle it carefully. I will, she promised. I'll spend the rest of my life handling it carefully. As she was leaving that evening, she hugged me tight and whispered, "Thank you for coming to my wedding. Even though there was no wedding. Even though I told you not to. Thank you for showing up. It saved my life." It saved both our lives, I whispered back. After she left, I stood at my window looking out at the city lights, thinking about everything. About revenge and forgiveness, about pain and healing, about the long journey from that phone call before graduation to this moment of peace. People ask me sometimes if I regret going to the wedding, if I regret exposing Rebecca so publicly, if I regret the pain it caused both of us. And my answer is always the same: no. Because silence would have killed me slowly. Staying erased would have meant dying while still breathing. Rebecca needed to face consequences, and I needed to reclaim my life. But revenge was never the endgame. It was just the beginning, the explosive moment that shattered the lies and created space for truth. What came after, the slow, painful, necessary work of rebuilding, that's where the real story is. I didn't go to that wedding to destroy my daughter. I went to save myself. And somehow, in saving myself, I gave her the opportunity to save herself too. She took it. Not right away. Not easily. But she took it. And now, 2 years later, we're both alive in ways we weren't before. She's living honestly for the first time in years. I'm living for myself for the first time in my life. It's not perfect. It probably never will be. There are scars that haven't healed, wounds that still ache, moments when old pain resurfaces. But we're here. Together. Real. And that's enough. More than enough. It's everything. If you're watching this from somewhere in the world, I want you to know something: you matter. Your story matters. Your voice deserves to be heard. If someone has tried to erase you, silence you, make you feel like you don't deserve to exist, they're wrong. Come back from the dead. Demand to be seen. Reclaim your narrative. It won't be easy. It might break things that can't be fixed. But it will also free you in ways you never imagined. And freedom, I've learned, is worth the price. Thank you for listening to my story. If you want to hear more stories like this, stories of betrayal, resilience, and finding your way back to yourself, check the description box below. Share this if it spoke to you. Comment where you're watching from. And most importantly, if you're living invisibly because someone decided you weren't good enough to be seen, come back to life. You deserve to exist. Fully, completely, unapologetically, just like I do. Just like we all do.